du tout. Non, c'est mieux. Ok, vas-y. Non, mais on fera après, genre, t'inquiète. De quoi après? Bah, quand tu... Ah non, tu veux pas. Non, non, je suis pas pressée. Ok, bah quand tu veux, sinon tu feras après. Comme tu veux. Parce que là, je peux faire... On peut faire vite. D'accord. Ça y est, on fait une photo aussi. Mais mon Dieu, on dirait une qualité de live. Ah, ça va pas. Ouais. Quoi d'autre? Tu l'as maintenant. Oh mon Dieu, par contre, qu'a dit Cléa avec les cheveux carrés sur le côté? Mais là, c'est même pas bien avec. Ouais, alors là, on a tout bleu. Parce que moi, c'est pas fini. Ah bon? T'as vu toi aussi? Et non, toi, t'as pas dit cheveux beaucoup. T'as tout fait. Non, mais moi, c'est pas fini. Toujours nul, t'es pas obligé de faire encore. Ah oui, mais toi, ça te fait pas. Moi, je te dis ça. Non, je te fais pas. Mais dès que ça me fait, c'est juste comme ça. C'est le truc. Mais c'est pas le fait que ce soit ça qui dérange, c'est le fait de la coupe que j'avais. Tu sais, c'était les bilaterales là, tu sais, avec les trucs nuls. Style, mais pas ta gueule. Si, c'est ce que j'avais mis. Je te montrerai. Ça, faut le dire. Oui, mais bonne excuse, voilà. J'ai vérifié. Merci. The list dit how much time the...
2 minutes for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
So the chair has the same times.
Yeah, I see.
Armenia, you have
Armenia,
to say,
yes.
but
Okay. Perfect.
so yeah, good luck with your fingers.
Thank you. Non! C'est très bien, on dirait qu'il y a une frange. Il y a une frange. Non, ça va de frange. Bah, ça va très bien, on dirait qu'il y a une frange.
Ouais, c'est joli.
Il a dit c'est joli. Mais ça va très bien. Non, mais parce que je me suis dit avec mais d'habitude, avec ses cheveux, tu mettrais des pins, tu sais. Mais tu n'as pas dit qu'il faut, t'es. Mais c'est très bien. Non, mais là, ça va pas bien. Arrête. Hi. Now, which country
For
do
the
you
next
have?
list, Ireland.
Island. Ireland.
Yeah.
Iceland.
No, not Iceland.
No?
Everyone
Ireland.
says Ireland.
Ireland. 1 minute.
Just 1 minute.
Yes, but if you see all country has around 1 minute. It depends on how much time they
So 1 minute, I'm glad I asked you. No, that's okay. Well, I can go on. If it's 1 minute, it's 1 minute.
Sorry, I checked. Alors là, ça va pas. Là, ça va pas. Non, non, non. Mais avant, ça allait. Yes, you have. Is the Clifford.
Oh, yes, no, but the one previously we have no speaker yet. In B.
Estimados delegados, vamos a iniciar la sesión de la tarde. Empezaremos con el segmento C. Segundo turno de intervención de las delegaciones. Les rogaría también a todos que se ciñan al tiempo que tienen ustedes marcado, porque de lo contrario nos veremos obligados de la presidencia a cortarles el micrófono. Empezaremos con Nueva Zelanda por un tiempo de 2 minutos. A continuación, Dinamarca.
Mr. President and members of the Assembly, tēnā koutou katoa, kia orana koutou katoa. I greet you all as the Member of Parliament for Palmerston North from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Over the years, our country has demonstrated that it takes its role in regional security and peacekeeping seriously. And as an honest broker and a mediator, we are a country that is willing to stand on its track record. As a global citizen, our sense of responsibility has never restricted us to our own backyard. We have also shown a commitment well beyond our own waters. Our leadership in the area of nuclear disarmament speaks for itself. We have never shied away from this mantra, and in fact, being nuclear-free is firmly embedded in our identity as a nation. It's part of the Kiwi DNA. More recently, our focus has been on doing what we can to promote a stable, prosperous and resilient Pacific, which includes a greater presence in the region. And I want to mihi to our Pacific brothers and sisters who are here as part of this 148th Assembly in Geneva. This approach has seen us focus on regional priorities such as climate change, economic resilience, health and education, gender, human rights and a focus on young people, all of importance to the work of the IPU, and to assist with policy and partnership opportunities for the Pacific region where we can. Our experience with select committees that exist within our parliamentary system is that they play a vital role in scrutinising our executive, but they also provide the opportunity for public input into the process. They can initiate independent inquiries into any matters that they consider worthy of scrutiny, ensuring active transparency and a sense of public confidence in the system. Mr. President, it is more than desirable for all parliamentarians to reflect upon the role they can play in the areas of peace and security. The reality is that in a global context, such an opportunity is not available to all. This means we must all look for ways to take up the challenge and responsibility, whether it is in our own region or further abroad. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia orana, koutou katoa, me taki mata. Thank you, Mr. President.
Muchas gracias. Gracias por ceñirse al tiempo marcado. A continuación, Dinamarca, por un tiempo de 1 minuto y medio.
Thank you. I'm going to talk a little to your bad conscience. I'm glad that so many are here. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a critical juncture in human history, facing the urgent need to address the challenges posed by climate change. The time has come for us to embark on a transformative journey towards more sustainable and resilient future. One of the key steps in the journey is to phase out fossil energy from our global energy mix. I suggest by 2035 we will be there. Fossil energy has for sure fueled the progress of human civilization, but it has also contributed significantly to biodiversity destruction and climate disruption. We cannot continue down this path if we are going to safeguard the future for future generations. It's time to embrace a new era of clean, renewable energy sources. This presents a chance for job creation, technological advancement, and inclusive economic development across the world. We must work together to establish robust regulatory mechanism, carbon tax, and incentives for clean energy adoption. In closing, I urge each and every one of us to embrace the challenge of phasing out fossil energy from our energy mix before 2035. Let us seize this moment to be the architects of a brighter and cleaner and more sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Dinamarca. A continuación tiene la palabra Azerbaiyán por un tiempo de 1 minuto. Después Polonia.
Dear Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, at a time when global issues are becoming more complex, transboundary and interconnected, parliamentary diplomacy plays a crucial role in fostering international cooperation, facilitating dialogue and influencing foreign policy decisions. The importance of parliamentary diplomacy in shaping the state's foreign policy is growing as a result of the increased role of international organizations. Parliamentarians bring new value to the conflict resolution and dispute settlement process. Parliaments are integral for post-conflict governance and instrumental in securing successful implementation of peace agreements and long-term quality of peace. Azerbaijan could restore its sovereignty all over the country. Now Azerbaijan and Armenia are in the process of normalization of post-war relations. Signing a long-awaited peace deal between the two countries will at least bring sustainable peace to the South Caucasus. This is a very responsible and sensitive historical period when the two nations are turning off the hatred page and open up new era in the regional relationship. Unfortunately, some parliaments act in a destructive manner, issuing one-sided biased resolutions, just pouring oil to flame. Such interference is unacceptable, and those who are unable to contribute at least need to keep silence for the sake of peace, security, and welfare of these future generations. We believe that the parliamentary diplomacy gains a special role in bringing together the parliamentarians on the international platforms, enabling to build bridges for peace and security and understanding. But this year, in January, we faced at the PACE, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, unforeseen motion when the credentials of the Azerbaijani parliamentary delegation was rejected just in order to meet the dirty interests of a particular group of MPs. PACE for us is a dialogue platform, enabling to strengthen the parliamentary diplomacy and people's participations in foreign policy, whom they want to punish. Nations, their mandated representatives, or ordinary citizens. Dear colleagues, this is the very question that we need to answer to save democracy and people's representations at every level of governance. Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias. El siguiente país en intervenir será Netherlands. ¿Es correcto?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. The subject of today's discussion is parliamentary diplomacy, building bridges for peace and understanding. But how often do we ask ourselves, what actually does parliamentary diplomacy mean? Is it just about going abroad, voting on resolutions, saying that there should be world peace, and then congratulating each other on a job well done? Or is it more than that? Or should it be more than that? Actual talking to each other, listening to the opinions of the others, and trying to find a common ground. Are we doing this? Are we succeeding in doing this? We had some evidence to the contrary in this very room 2 days ago. And while we were fighting and shouting at each other, there was one delegation profoundly enjoying it. They were enjoying it because our behavior prevented anyone from mentioning the illegal, brutal, and genocidal war they are waging in Ukraine. Should we be playing in a Russian theater? I remember when we were discussing the emergency item on Ukraine 2 years ago in Kigali. I appreciate how many delegations from Africa, South America, and others were listening and trying to understand our Central European point of view. And it has worked. We have found the common ground. We were able to stand firmly on the ground of our values. Let's get back to that, because this is what our voters expect us to do. Thank you very much.
Armenia. Muchas gracias. A continuación, el turno de Armenia por un tiempo de 2 minutos y medio.
Thank you, Mr. President, Excellencies, fellow parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start, we should condemn the terrorist attack in Moscow and extend our condolences to the victims' families, wishing speedy recovery to the injured. This highlights the need for unity against extremism to preserve peace and security in our states. Parliamentary diplomacy represents a powerful tool for countries to engage in global affairs, shape foreign policy, and foster peaceful international relations. Armenia remains dedicated to peace and stability in the South Caucasus region, prepared to undertake further efforts toward this goal. Constructive negotiations with Azerbaijan are ongoing, aimed to reaching a peace agreement, border delimitation, and unblocking transport communications. These efforts are guided by principles previously discussed and approved by the leaders of both countries. Number one, Armenia and Azerbaijan recognize each other's borders, territorial integrity, and the basis of 1991 Almaty Declaration. Number two, the Almaty Declaration is a political basis for the delimitation process. According to the Almaty Declaration, the newly independent former USSR republics, including Armenia and Azerbaijan, accepted that the former Soviet administrative borders between them are recognized as interstate borders. Number three, regional communications should be unblocked with respect to the sovereignty and jurisdiction of transit countries based on the principle of equality and reciprocity. Armenia's views on this topic are assumed in the Crossroads of Peace project. The Crossroads of Peace initiative will facilitate communication between the two states, business, people, and international stakeholders. This approach is vital for fostering peace, prosperity, and trust between the two countries and in the wider region. In conclusion, I am pleased to announce that Armenia will host the 10th Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians in September 2024. I extend a warm invitation to all the young MPs to participate in this forum and experience the hospitality of Yerevan and people of Armenia. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank all the states and the countries and parliamentarians for supporting the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Ahora sí, Países Bajos por un tiempo de 1 minuto 30 segundos.
Mr. President, thank you. You started the time already. The Netherlands is a small country. It belongs to the most densely populated in the world, and in Parliament, not one political party ever has an absolute majority. As a result, in the Netherlands, we know that working together is essential. We are not only aware of cooperation, it is in the essence of our political and parliamentary work. We are a coalition country, so to say. It is in the Netherlands that created the polder model, a method of consensus decision-making. We always look for ways to find common ground, discover common interests, and build bridges between conflicting opinions and expectations. In all cooperation, freedom is a fundamental requirement. Freedom of speech, freedom of information, freedom of religion, freedom of association, and freedom of press. Freedom of press hasn't been a main subject during this assembly, while, and I quote, "In wars and armed conflicts, the first one dying is the truth," unquote. That is a well-known saying that also stresses the importance of free press to deliver factual information. And although the Netherlands are back again in the top 10 of countries with freedom of press, also our journalists are intimidated and threatened, especially when they are female. Please join us in stressing the importance of freedom of press. Let's work together across borders, across cultures, and across parliaments to build and maintain that. I invite you to share your learnings And maybe together we can put this important issue of freedom of express on the agenda of the next Assembly. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Es el turno de Bolivia por tiempo de 1 minuto.
Gracias. Quiero hacer hincapié en 3 elementos fundamentales de la democracia parlamentaria, de la diplomacia parlamentaria. Primero, democracia. El parlamentarismo significa mayor democracia, pero no solamente realización de las elecciones, sino fundamentalmente pensar en 3 conceptos de profundización de la democracia paritaria, la democracia desde la perspectiva de género, la democracia aceptando la diferencia, la democracia comunitaria y de los pueblos, y la democracia directa. Hoy estamos en el país de Rousseau y esto es algo que también tenemos en deuda. Segundo elemento de la problemática que nos ocupa, la diplomacia parlamentaria, la integración. En este momento proponemos, presidente, que todos los bloques parlamentarios, por lo menos en el caso de América Latina, el Mercosur, el Parlamento Andino, el Parlamento Centroamericano y el Parlamento Latinoamericano, sean incorporados en la UIP como miembros observadores. Y finalmente, la paz. No puede haber diplomacia parlamentaria sin paz. No puede haber diplomacia parlamentaria sin lucha contra el racismo, contra los discursos de odio. Diplomacia parlamentaria significa, en definitiva, la posibilidad de pensar en un mundo nuevo. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Bolivia. Es el turno de Francia por 1 minuto y 30 segundos.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, chers collègues. Hier, le Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies a enfin adopté une résolution appelant à un cessez-le-feu immédiat à Gaza, à la libération immédiate et inconditionnelle de tous les otages, en soulignant l'urgente nécessité d'élargir le flux d'aide vers Gaza. S'il faut évidemment s'en féliciter, ce vote laisse pourtant un goût amer, car les initiateurs de la résolution des Nations Unies se trouvent certains pays qui ont empêché ici, à Genève, d'atteindre un consensus dans cette enceinte créée pourtant pour la paix. C'est une déception et une incompréhension d'autant plus grande que la diplomatie parlementaire connaît souvent de beaux succès. Par exemple, en France, la France a accueilli à Paris début mars 24 présidentes d'assemblées de tous les continents, dont notre présidente Tulia Axon, pour un sommet international inédit en faveur des droits des femmes, alors qu'ils ne cessent de régresser, voire d'être remis en cause à travers le monde. La déclaration adoptée à cette occasion exhorte d'agir urgemment en faveur de l'éducation des filles, condition première de leur émancipation et de l'accès à la santé et à la protection de leurs droits sexuels et reproductifs, défi majeur en termes d'égalité. Condition de la progression de l'humanité, la protection et le renforcement des droits des femmes et des filles est un combat constant. Combat sur lequel il ne faut jamais reculer, comme nous en avertissait dès 1949 la philosophe française Simone de Beauvoir. N'oubliez jamais qu'il suffira d'une crise politique, économique ou religieuse pour que les droits des femmes soient remis en question. Ces droits ne sont jamais acquis, vous devrez rester vigilante votre vie durant. Et aujourd'hui, il n'est plus que jamais nécessaire de renforcer notre vigilance collective sur cet enjeu majeur. C'est de notre responsabilité collective. Je vous en remercie.
Muchas gracias, Francia. A continuación, Nigeria, por el tiempo de 1 minuto.
The President of the Assembly, the Secretariat, most distinguished friends and colleagues, I bring you greetings from the people and government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Today we focus on parliamentary diplomacy, building bridges and peace and understanding, Sunday's deliberation on humanitarian crisis in Gaza showed us what parliamentary democracy should not be. We failed to reach consensus, missing a crucial opportunity for collective action. True democracy requires compromise and understanding, even on contentious issues. My dear friends and colleagues, war is ugly. We must always count the cost before engaging in it. It is very expensive on human and material costs. We must consider, and this is the proposition of the delegation from Nigeria, our Rule 11 sub 2, which allows for flexibility, suggesting the possibility of addressing multiple urgent issues. It should be considered again, where more than one issue could come up as emergency item on the list. Because what this has done over the years is that some continents are shortchanged, and Africa is one of them, where crisis in Africa, 13,000 lives are lost in Sudan, and other parts of Africa is not mentioned on the list. This must be reviewed. Gender equality also is an interest for the delegation from Nigeria, because we believe that their inclusion in governance as peace builders, as peacemakers that women are, that will be able to get to the destination that we are looking for in making peace and making the world a better place. 26%, that is the representation of women, is a poor indication that we need to do more around the globe with regards to women participation. In addition, building bridges for this peace needs to incorporate places like Africa, DRC Congo, Sahel in Africa, Sudan, and making sure that their voices are heard. Parliamentary diplomacy offers a strategic approach to global peace. We must focus on conflict prevention, management, and post-conflict peace building. And this has led the National Assembly of Nigeria to look into the effort of establishing initiatives that will help in managing peace in post-war areas like the southeastern zone of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And this is called Southeast Peace Project, which has bettered the Southeast Development Commission, which, when passed to law, will help to calm the agitations of this zone that have been suffering from the post-war problems that has taken place over 5 decades ago, without reintegration and rehabilitation. I want to thank you all for listening. 2 minutes is actually too short for us to make our intervention, but I'm believing that I wish the world the peace that passes all understanding. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Les recuerdo la importancia de ceñirse al tiempo que tienen establecido, ya que son muchos los intervinientes y tenemos que intentar ceñirnos al máximo. A continuación tiene la palabra Japón por un tiempo de 2 minutos y medio.
Thank you, Chair. 日本国会代表副団長の参議院議員吉川優美でございます。私は昨年まで外務大臣政務官として軍縮不拡散、そして国際協力の担当し、武力紛争下における文民保護の重要性、また国際協力の必要性を訴えてまいりました。現在、ウクライナやガザで直面している喫緊の状況への人道的支援、これはもちろんのこと、その後の自立支援、また復興において政府における経験を生かし、一議会人として平和および理解への政府における架け橋となるよう努めてまいりたいと思います。私が所属する参議院は良識の府、また最高の府とも称され、議会における政府への監視機能、これに重点を置いております。中でも政府開発援助 ODA については、海外に議員派遣団を派遣し、ODA のついての在り方について政府に正すなど、政府の開発援助に対する在り方、これを議会としてもしっかりと見ていく、このように深い関わりを持っております。我が国は ODA 支援、また経済協力などにより、橋をはじめとする多くのインフラ、各国のインフラ整備に携わってまいりました。 橋は国と国、そして人と人との交流を生み、心の架け橋としても一翼を担う重要なものです。グローバル化の進展に伴い、国際社会と国内問題を切り離して考えることができなくなっている現代社会において、各国の議会はこれまで以上に緊密に連携をし、国際問題に関与していく必要があると考えております。今般、緊急追加議題として、ガザにおける議論がございました。私ども日本の誇るべき憲法の前文において、我らは全世界の国民が等しく恐怖と欠乏から逃れ、平和のうちに生存する権利を有することを確認すると謳っております。今、この世界の状況下において、この平和的生存権、この理念を全世界の国民を代表するこの IPU の基本理念として掲げることを、私ども日本は提案をしたいというふうに思っております。我々は全世界の国民の平和的生存権を胸に、議会人として平和および理解への架け橋となるべく、平和創造の議会外交、これを積極的に行っていくことを改めてお約束いたしています。Thank you so much. ありがとうございました。
Muchas gracias. Es el turno de Perú. 1 minuto 30 segundos.
Muchas gracias, presidente. Buen día y por su intermedio a todos los presentes. Soy Alex Paredes González, profesor de la República del Perú. El diálogo, el consenso y la concertación son algunos de los elementos indispensables de una verdadera práctica de una honesta diplomacia parlamentaria. Hoy estamos viviendo escenarios diversos de conflictos, de guerra en varias partes del mundo. Hoy pudimos dar una demostración de diplomacia parlamentaria, llegando a un entendimiento que colocaba por delante de todo tipo de diferencias la vida, la solidaridad, la humanidad, la paz, el hambre de seres humanos. Sin embargo, nos vamos con el sinsabor que pudimos hacer más. Ojalá que en la siguiente oportunidad que tengamos, valoremos lo trascendental de nuestras decisiones expresadas en votos. Y no dudo que muchas veces sí lo hemos hecho en nuestros países. En consecuencia, seamos coherentes. Para concluir, recordemos aquello que alguna vez nos dijo Helen Keller: la forma más simple de ser feliz es haciendo el bien. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. A continuación es el turno de Irlanda por un tiempo de 1 minuto.
The global community must not remain silent as an entire nation faces annihilation before our very eyes. What is happening in Gaza is the greatest human rights violation of our time. We cannot say we didn't hear, we cannot say we didn't see, and we cannot say we didn't know. One day our children and our grandchildren will look to us and ask, how was this allowed to happen, and why so many leaders in the West got it so badly wrong? The people of Gaza face horrifying levels of hunger and imminent famine. Famine resonates deeply with Ireland. We are only a few generations away from famine when over 1 million Irish people starved to death. Over 1 million people, half of Gaza's population, are at grave risk. Having endured 165 days of genocide, slaughter, displacement and dispossession, the people of Gaza now face disastrous famine and disease. Israel is using starvation as a weapon of war. As the spectrum of famine stalks Gaza, Israel continues its relentless bombardment. In Ireland, we know conflict, but we also know the value of hard-won peace. The Good Friday Agreement shows that no conflict is intractable. Leaders across the West must join from across the world and push unequivocally for the immediate, full and permanent ceasefire. Ireland was the first country in Europe to categorically state without equivocation that Israel had carried out the crime of annexation in the occupied territories. We need to enact the Unoccupied Territories Bill and the Israeli Settlements Divestment Bill. We must stop the war. We must have a ceasefire. Ireland stands with Palestine. Ireland stands for peace.
Muchas gracias. El turno de Montenegro por 1 minuto 30 segundos.
Distinguished Chairperson, estimated colleagues, growing up in a country butchered by the war leaves horrible scars on human soul, lives, and according to science, in our brain also. Today, while we are sitting here, more than 600 million women and children are trying to survive within the war areas. From the perspective of citizens, there is no benefits from war, no matter who is the winner. We who grow up in former Yugoslavia, we know this from the first hand. To the children in war zones, names of our countries that we all have in front of us sound like names of some divine creatures with superpowers that can stop the war. Even though countries are not characters from fairy tales, but the projects of decision makers, us, like those children, I believe that we can do good things and stop the conflict. Our magic stick is the dialogue. Parliamentary diplomacy is an effective measure in conflict management. We, as the parliamentarians, should be a voice of gathering, promotion of understanding, calling on ceasefire and finding resolution. We should talk openly and loudly how violence affects everyday people's lives, years and years after the conflict is over. And we should use this global platform to build bridges among us and spread the empathy for all people in wars. Our conclusions are not binding for the governments, but if we all talk in one voice, we have a chance to make a pressure. Nowadays, lives and future of people are sculpturing by traumatic experiences in war zones. Some of those people are or will become our family members, neighbors, friends, our love. And this current conflict are, or they will be, the reason of our personal suffering, because the refugee issue is everybody's issue. Dear colleagues from all around the world, we must confront the evil and stop the circle of violence in the international area. Dear friends, let's do our best to spread the message of peace and understanding and dialogue, because the kids in war areas believe in our countries, they believe in us, and we can't let them down. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. A continuación tiene el turno de palabra Singapur por un tiempo de 1 minuto y 30 segundos.
Mr. President, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joan Pereira and I'm a Member of Parliament of Singapore. In our current Parliament, 30% of our parliamentarians are women across the different political parties and nominated members of Parliament. As female parliamentarians, we play an important role in understanding and continuing to articulate the needs and aspirations of women in Singapore and ensuring that our laws and policies evolve to support and empower them. The United Nations Human Development Report ranked Singapore 8th out of 166 countries for having one of the lowest gender inequality index values in 2022. We are proud of this ranking as a testament to our women's progress and achievements in areas such as educational attainment, employment, empowerment, and health. However, we cannot rest on our laurels. Our Parliament regularly and frequently reviews and debates on areas for improvement. In early 2022, our parliament debated on and endorsed the white paper on Singapore women's development. The white paper included 25 action plans in 5 key areas: equal opportunities in the workplace, recognition and support for caregivers, protection against violence and harm, other support measures for women, and mindset shifts. Another example would be the workplace fairness legislation slated for passage in Parliament in the second half of this year. This legislation will strengthen fair practices at workplaces, including the prohibition of specified forms of discrimination based on gender, marital, and pregnancy status. The Parliament of Singapore is committed to the advancement of women as integral and equal members of our society on the principle of meritocracy. We look forward to learning from and sharing with fellow parliamentarians globally as the world moves forward in achieving our commitments to the UN Sustainable Development Goals to create a fairer world for all. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias. A continuación, vamos a pasar a la sección D, que es el turno de los jóvenes parlamentarios. Empezaremos con Nigeria. En esta sección, todos los intervinientes tendrán un tiempo de 2 minutos.
Good afternoon, this assembly. As a young parliamentarian, I stand before you today as a representative of the young voices in our global parliamentary community, voices that are eager to be heard and to make a meaningful impact on the world we are inheriting. Our generation brings to the table the energy of youth and the audacity to imagine a world that is not yet realized. And we are not naive to the historical and political precedents set by those who have come before us, as these precedents serve as both a guidepost and a challenge. They remind us of the progress achieved through dialogue and cooperation, and yet underscore the vast terrain we still must traverse. To build bridges, we must first recognize that every nation has its own history, its own struggles, and its own aspirations. Understanding these narratives is the first step towards empathy, and empathy is the cornerstone of peace. We must make use of every tool at our disposal to keep the channels of communication open. I have first-hand knowledge of the difficulties and sacrifices associated with achieving peace through dialogue. As chairman of the Senate Committee with oversight responsibilities over the Niger Delta Development Commission, the largest interventionist agency in Nigeria, my members and I are burdened with the task of building bridges for peace and development in the Niger Delta region, a region globally renowned for its rich cultural heritage and abundant natural endowment, but also unfortunately known for its long history of conflict and unrest, primarily driven by the oil reserves that lie beneath its surface. Parliamentary diplomacy stands as a cornerstone in fostering cooperation, dialogue, and mutual understanding among nations and regions, providing a unique platform for engaging in constructive dialogue, promoting peace, and resolving conflicts through diplomatic means. I urge the Inter-Parliamentary Union to enact resolutions that do not merely seek of peace, but actively construct its architecture. Resolutions that recognize the suffering of women and children who are victims of war and violence. Resolutions that recognize the importance of youth engagement in political processes, ensuring that our voices are not only heard, but heeded. In the words of the late Kofi Annan, peace is never a perfect achievement. It requires the commitment of each one of us to the ideals of understanding, tolerance, and shared prosperity. As we deliberate on the issues before us, let us be reminded that peace is not just a destination, but a manner of traveling. Thank you, and God bless you.
Muchas gracias. A continuación, seguimos con esta sección, jóvenes parlamentarios. Es el turno de Reino Unido.
Mr. President, honourable young parliamentarians, I'm pleased to be able to inform this distinguished assembly of the lesson that I will take away from this conference. It is that there is a new generation of young leaders emerging around the world who are championing freedom, supporting the rule of law, and advancing democracy, who are determined to fight hatred and division, and who together will lead a new project to rebuild and reinvigorate the rules-based order for a new global era. Our heroes are the young parliamentarians of Ukraine. They are standing against the illegal war being waged upon them. Our heroes are the young female politicians around the world fighting for equal representation in their societies. And our heroes are the brave parliamentarians resisting oppression and tyranny, even by making the ultimate sacrifice and laying down their lives. So I have some bad news for the colleagues who in this hall have been organizing the dirty work of repressive regimes. You must know that all tyrannies will end. All dictatorships will expire. Every authoritarianism is eventually crushed by the irrepressible human desire for freedom, and there is nothing you will be able to do to stop it. So that is why I invite every distinguished delegate from every country today to join a new democratic generation, reject the false promises of authoritarianism, because authoritarians are yesterday's men. They hate youth, they detest the vibrancy and promise of free young people, and we, the young parliamentarians of the world, will stand against them and build a free world. Slava Ukraini, thank you.
Muchas gracias. Damos la palabra a continuación a Singapur.
Mr. President, fellow parliamentarians, my name is Louis Chua and I'm a Member of Parliament of Singapore. Thank you for giving young MPs like myself the opportunity to address the General Assembly. As legislators, members of Parliament in Singapore or any parliaments around the world play a critical role in promoting peace, stability, and the overall well-being of our nations. Through scrutinizing draft laws and taking up a critical and inquisitorial role in Parliament, parliamentarians empower and give a voice to our citizens, ensuring that there will always be a healthy national dialogue on issues that matter to our people. Internationally, the IPU was founded on the notion that dialogue is central to the peaceful resolution of conflict. Recognizing these, over the years, parliamentarians from Singapore have worked hard to contribute to peace and better understanding by establishing regional parliamentary groups, engaging in regular parliamentary dialogue, and participating at inter-parliamentary conferences, forums, and general assemblies. Members of Parliament in Singapore are organized into 7 regional parliamentary groups. Members volunteer and indicate their interest to join such RPGs. RPG members host incoming visits to Parliament House and from their counterparts in countries and jurisdictions around the world. The RPGs provide a fora for members to forge closer and more regular relations with parliamentarians from each respective region. Members also regularly attend inter-parliamentary conferences and meetings organized by multilateral institutions such as the ASEAN Inter-Parliamentary Assembly, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, the Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum, and the Inter-Parliamentary Union. Such platforms provide the opportunity for members to have dialogues to promote deeper understanding and to forge warm ties among parliamentarians of various jurisdictions, and ultimately, to bring all our nations closer together amid these difficult times. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. A continuación, volvemos a la sección B, que quedaba pendiente la intervención, y tiene la palabra por un tiempo de 5 minutos el representante de Suiza.
Merci, Monsieur le Président de séance. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers collègues parlementaires, chers jeunes parlementaires également. Quel plaisir, au nom de la délégation suisse, de s'investir dans le cadre de l'Union interparlementaire et en particulier sur cette thématique importante de la diplomatie parlementaire. D'autant plus ici à Genève, une place clairement de la Genève internationale, pour laquelle d'ailleurs le Parlement suisse et ses membres s'engagent depuis de nombreuses années, tant d'un point de vue déjà financier et de soutien
auprès des différentes organisations internationales, mais également des organisations non gouvernementales. Nous sommes convaincus, en tant que parlementaires, de la complémentarité. Une complémentarité qui est à plus d'un titre. Elle est évidemment entre le gouvernement, responsable de l'exécution des affaires internationales, mais le Parlement a aussi ses responsabilités. Le Parlement a des responsabilités importantes, chers collègues, ne les oublions pas. D'abord, le Parlement, il vote le budget. Et le budget, c'est les moyens pour agir. Le Parlement, il vote les accords. Le Parlement, il vote les orientations. Le Parlement, au travers notamment de ses commissions de politique étrangère ou extérieure, selon comment cela s'appelle, va orienter et aider le gouvernement à avoir une perception de ce que les groupes politiques estiment ou pensent sur la politique extérieure, dès ses prémices jusqu'au moment des conclusions. Vous le voyez, donc, une complémentarité. Mais une complémentarité également au point de vue organisationnel entre les services de l'État et les services non gouvernementaux. Nous le savons, nous le voyons dans de nombreux pays, dans de nombreuses situations. Nous nous retrouvons dans l'obligation de pouvoir renforcer cette complémentarité parce que certaines institutions, elles peuvent être de l'ONU, elles peuvent être d'un État, elles peuvent être d'une organisation non gouvernementale, auront le meilleur accès pour atteindre le meilleur objectif. Donc il est important que nous puissions, nous, parlementaires, assurer cette coordination, cette complémentarité, et cela fait partie également d'un de nos rôles. Nous nous réjouissons donc beaucoup de cette thématique de la diplomatie parlementaire, parce que c'est également l'une des actions fortes de l'Union interparlementaire, que ce soit avec son comité des affaires du Moyen-Orient, que ce soit avec le groupe de facilitateurs de Chypre. Voilà deux exemples extrêmement concrets où la diplomatie parlementaire vient en support, en complémentarité d'autres actions gouvernementales ou d'organisations intergouvernementales, mais où il est absolument essentiel que les parlements s'y retrouvent. Et ce n'est pas pour rien que l'Union interparlementaire est plus ancienne même que l'ONU. Ce n'est pas pour rien que dans la francophonie, l'Assemblée parlementaire de la francophonie, dont j'y suis également actif, est un élément fort en partenariat avec l'organisation intergouvernementale. Vous le voyez, mesdames et messieurs, chers collègues, nous avons à agir, nous avons une responsabilité, c'est notre engagement. Il est évident pour les choses internes à notre pays, mais aussi pour les affaires extérieures et étrangères de nos pays et la collaboration internationale. Une fois encore, l'Union interparlementaire est un magnifique exemple et il vaut la peine de continuer notre engagement, notamment au travers de ce réseau et de ses actions. Je vous remercie.
Muchísimas gracias. A continuación tiene el turno, volvemos a la sección de jóvenes parlamentarios, tiene el turno Marruecos.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. اولا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاه والسلام على اشرف المرسلين. استنادا الى مبدا ان البرلمانيين والبرلمانات الوطنيه لها دور اساسي بل وحاسم في توطيد السلام وتعزيز التفاهم، اسمحوا لي بصفتي عضوا في الوفد المغربي ان اشارك في هذه المناقشه الغنيه من خلال عرض مقترحات وتوصيات. اولا يجب على المؤسسات التشريعية والمنظمات البرلمانية أن تضع احترام الحقوق الأساسية والدستورية وحقوق الإنسان وحماية الحريات المدنية في قلب أعمالها فيما يتعلق بالدبلوماسية البرلمانية. لأن أولا القدرة على العمل كوسطاء صادقين وذو مصداقية في الجهود المبذولة لتعزيز السلام والأمن يعتمد على مساهمتهم الفعالة في احترام القانون الدولي الإنساني والقانون الدولي لحقوق الإنسان وتعزيز القيم التي تشجع على احترام الحياة والكرامة الإنسانية. يستوجب الأمر أيضا دمج أدوات الدبلوماسية البرلمانية في الآليات والإجراءات الهيكلية الهادفة للحد من النزاعات من قبيل الاتفاقات السياسية بين مختلف الجهات الفاعلة والمعنية بهذه النزاعات، وأيضا الحوارات الوطنية الرامية إلى المصالحة وتوطيد السلام والعدالة الانتقالية. يجب على البرلمانيين والبرلمانات الوطنية ضمان التكامل فعال واتباع نهج متناسق مع حكومتهم والتعاون بشكل وثيق مع الإجراءات الدبلوماسية للحكومات، لأن الدبلوماسية البرلمانية وأنشطة البرلمان في هذا الصدد من قبيل بعثات رسمية إلى أن البلدان أخرى وعلى مستوى المنتديات المتعدد متعددة الأطراف تساهم في تعزيز حقوق الإنسان وترسيخ معايير الديمقراطية والتعددية السياسية. من جانب الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي يجب عليه أن يستمر في تحسين قطب السلام الذي هو يجب أن يكون قادراً على التدخل في قضايا الحد من النزاعات وتوطيد السلام. ولا يفوتني لأنني عضو بمنتدى البرلماني الشباب وأنني أتكلم كبرلماني الشاب، يجب على الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي أيضاً أن يمكن منتدى البرلماني الشباب ومنتدى النساء البرلمانيات من المشاركة بشكل أفضل وتقديم مساهمة فعالة في الدبلوماسية البرلمانية الموجهة نحو توطيد السلام والتفاهم عبر العالم. وشكراً.
Muchas gracias, Marruecos. A continuación, le damos la palabra a Italia.
Chairman, Mr. President, honorable colleagues, I'm here in Geneva for the first time. Here with you, dear colleagues, here at the IPU and here on this stage. It is an honor for me to be able to debate in an organization whose slogan is for democracy for everyone. The truth, however, is quite different. Democracy is still a distant mirage, and too many people in this world do not live by the basic rules of law. I have listened to many speeches over the last few days, and they all seem to be going in the same direction, in the search of balance, stability, and conflict resolution. However, we are living through a moment of extreme geopolitical tension, a moment characterized by constant conflict and clash. But time is passing, and all of us who have the honor of representing millions of people need answer, courage, and brave for a change of peace. There are epochal challenges that can no longer be postponed, and every opportunity can be crucial to improve things. We need to think about this could be too late. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. A continuación tiene la palabra Azerbaiyán.
Dear Mr. Chairman, dear Assembly delegates, mutual respect and equality of all states, large and small, is the most important principle of the United Nations Charter. Harassment and aggression against sovereign states from a position of strength is totally unacceptable. We must actively develop and realize true multilateralism, promote equality of all countries in rights and opportunities, and make efforts to form a new type of international relations based on respect, justice, and mutually beneficial cooperation. In this regard, my attention has been drawn to a part of the conceived note to the general debates, which states, I quote, "Unilateral measures taken by states against other states without prior authorization by the international community continue to undermine global security, stability, and people's livelihoods, as well as the credibility of multilateral institutions." In my understanding, in order to obtain prior authorization for unilateral measures, it's first of all necessary to ensure trust in international organizations that promote peace and security, strengthen their authority in the world community, and ensure the full supremacy of the international law. Unfortunately, there are many cases where legally binding documents adopted by international organizations are completely ignored by many states for years, confirming the fact that these organizations are simply powerless in solving global problems and preventing conflicts. Today, many international organizations have simply turned into an instrument of powerful states and become hostages of their state interests. What kind of prior authorization can we talk about in such circumstances? In order to achieve peace and security in the world, the entire system of international organizations must first be reformed. By and large, global security and stability continue to be undermined, not by states, but by international organizations that remain silent and do not act effectively and efficiently. In this regard, we welcome the motion of the Standing Committee on UN Affairs on the need to reform the UN Security Council. As young parliamentarians, we must advocate, encourage, promote, and take all possible measures to ensure the supremacy of international law, protect and empower the international organizations to have a real impact and influence on states that flagrantly flout and ignore international law, its norms and principles. Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias. A continuación, tiene la palabra México.
Muchas gracias, presidente. Buenas tardes a todos. El crimen organizado y la crisis del multilateralismo son dos temas que se han tocado en distintos espacios de esta Asamblea. Temas que, además de estar vinculados directamente con la diplomacia parlamentaria, el crimen organizado desafía el desarrollo y la gobernabilidad democrática, primero de un país y posteriormente de una región. Un país como México y una región, la latinoamericana. Por su naturaleza es transnacional y busca expandirse y establecerse como un sistema alternativo que opera fuera del Estado de Derecho. Es en este contexto en donde se vuelve prioritario resolver la crisis del multilateralismo como un sistema de contención primero regional y posteriormente global a problemas nacionales cuyas consecuencias van más allá de sus propias fronteras. Para ello requerimos primeramente reconocer la debilidad del arquetipo institucional internacional que tenemos para así plantear un cambio de paradigma en la toma de decisiones globales. Los organismos globales requieren demostrar eficiencia y eficacia en la solución de problemas globales, pues su legitimidad recae mayormente en sus soluciones. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. A continuación, le damos la palabra a Dinamarca.
Okay, thank you. Anybody can say that they want a peaceful world, but it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication to actually get a peaceful world. Action speaks louder than words. And when it comes to the Russian Federation under the Putin regime, action has spoken so loud. It did not have to be this way. No one forced Russia to invade a neighboring country, a country guilty of nothing except of wishing to become a true part of the free and open world. As if Russia had to invade Ukraine, as if Russia had to be an enemy of the free world. The free world is an open club. Russia, why do you want the world to fear you? And why do you want to fear the world? You have so much to offer the world, and the world has so much to offer you. Ukrainians have become heroes of the free world for the brave fight against Russia. They have demonstrated that the bonds between free people always will be stronger than the fear from a regime like Russia. A coalition with 10 times the power of Russia, military as well as financially, has sworn to continue the support for Ukraine. Russia, you will never win the war you have started. You will be weaker from it, not stronger. But it's never too late to turn around. No one in the West dreams of a world without Russia. But that will be the final destination of the road that Russia have taken, and it's still going down. A nation of great culture and history will be lost to the world and to themselves. We all say we wish for a peaceful world, and now it's time to prove it. Russia, stop the war. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Dinamarca. Tiene la palabra a continuación, Bahamas.
Parliamentarians, distinguished colleagues, there is a permeating unease engulfing the world right now. Off the heels of a global pandemic that brought the world to its knees, we are seeing a rise in tensions and conflict across the globe, from the Russian aggression in Ukraine to the brutality in the Middle East. And at the heart of this is a test and one defining question. Will the international community come together to reject the cancer of conflict? With 56 countries experiencing armed conflict in 2023, the IPU provides a needed space for parliamentary dialogue and diplomacy at a global level. I'm from the Caribbean, a region known for its beauty, its peace, and its stability. But even now, we are dealing with the growing instability and conflict in Haiti and grappling with the existential threat to Guyana's territorial integrity. The situation in Haiti is particularly dire. If Haiti isn't yet formally deemed a failed state, it is well on its way. Government institutions and basic services have broken down, and gang violence has sparked one of the worst humanitarian crises the world has ever seen. We in the Bahamas are now on the front lines of this crisis, becoming home to over 80,000 Haitian refugees. The problems that Haiti faces are decades in the making, some say even centuries. And right now, we need the world's help in the Caribbean. Fellow parliamentarians, even in the midst of contrary views of the opposition at home, the government of the Bahamas is steadfast in our foreign policy of active engagement, making friends, allies, and partners around the world. We know that it is only through cooperation, friendship, and multilateralism can the world realize true peace, stability, and prosperity. So as we say in the islands, Godspeed, we wish you peace, prosperity, and stability. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Bahamas. Seguimos el debate con la intervención de Argelia.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. سلام الله عليكم من شاب برلماني يناضل من أجل السلام، من شاب حضر لكم من أرض الجزائر التي تدعو إلى السلام. شعارنا على قول شيخنا العلامة عبد الحميد بن باديس رحمة الله عليه: كن أخا إنسانيا لكل جنس من أجناس البشر. هذا هو الإسلام، وسلام الله عليكم وسلامنا الذي غاب على العالم. اليوم وأنا ألتقي زملائي وزميلاتي في هذا المنبر البرلماني العالمي الذي نسعى فيه بتفعيل وتمكين الشباب، إيمانا بنا بقدرتهم على التغيير والتجديد وبناء عالمي أكثر آمانا واستقرار. وفي هذا المنبر البرلماني نؤكد أسفنا أن الدبلوماسية البرلمانية قد فشلت في تعزيز الأمن وحماية الشعوب، وأكثر من ذلك فيها أبواق معادية لإنسانيتها وللسلام، حيث أصبحت عديد منها تدافع عن سردية المستعمر وتبرر لجريمة حرب مكتملة الأركان، لتصبح اليوم الدبلوماسية البرلمانية منظومة متحيزة متآكلة عاجزة عن الفصل بين الجلاد والضحية، وعدم وجود حل للأزمات بالهروب إلى الأمام أو الكيل بالمكيالين. إن ما يحدث اليوم في غزة والأراضي الفلسطينية محتلة بسبب العدوان الهمجي للكيان الصهيوني يعتبر في نظر كل إنسان إبادة جماعية. وفي الأخير، قبل أن أختم لكم من هذا المنبر، إن الجزائر ناضلت وستبقى تناضل من أجل كل القضايا العادلة في العالم، والاحتفاظ بمبدأ عدم التدخل في شؤون الداخلية للغير. وفي ذات السياق أستغرب حقا من خطاب الشجب الذي جاء به ممثل المغرب قاصدا به بلادي، خطابا مليء بالأوهام والشعارات واستعطاف الحاضرين في هذه الأيام البرلمانية، وهو ما اعتدنا عليه من زمن طويل. إن قضية الصحراء الغربية هي مسألة تسوية استعمار، وهي على طاولة المحكمة الدولية. وفي الأخير نؤيد ونثمن قرار مجلس الأمن الدولي الذي صدر وعلى وقف إطلاق النار الفوري لغزة. شكرا.
Muchas gracias. A continuación tiene la palabra México. then Malta and we'll finish. Yeah?
Gracias, presidente. La paz es producto de la justicia, suele decir el presidente de México, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Y ese es el tema que nos convoca en este momento, compañeras y compañeros parlamentarios. La diplomacia parlamentaria para la construcción de la paz y el entendimiento. Pero para progresar y alcanzar la paz, primero es necesario hacer justicia a los grupos sociales históricamente marginados, porque progreso sin justicia es solamente retroceso. No obstante, el progreso con justicia implica, por ejemplo, reconocer e impulsar la participación activa de las mujeres en la política y en la toma de decisiones. Actualmente en mi país, la Cámara de Diputados y la Cámara de Senadores está conformado por el mismo número de hombres y mujeres parlamentarias, y ambas cámaras son presididas por mujeres. Ejemplo de ello, tenemos aquí a la presidenta de la Cámara de Diputados que nos acompaña en esta 148 Asamblea de la Unión Interparlamentaria. El próximo 2 de junio también celebraremos elecciones en mi país en las que sin ninguna duda se hará historia y se elegirá por primera vez a una mujer presidenta de México. Y por supuesto será una mujer humanista, una mujer científica, progresiva, cuyo nombre se llama Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. Ese mismo día, en mi estado, en el estado de Morelos, se elegirá también a una gran mujer como primera gobernadora. Me refiero a Margarita González Arabia, a quien le mando un saludo desde acá. Y me complace decirlo porque es en el estado en donde yo nací. Además, estaremos nuevamente eligiendo un Congreso de la Unión con la mitad de espacios ocupados por mujeres. Gracias a este cambio de paradigma en mi país, seguiremos consolidando el involucramiento y la visibilidad de las mujeres en la toma de decisiones, no solamente en México, sino en todo el mundo. La promoción de la paz a través de la diplomacia parlamentaria que impulsarán las nuevas representantes del pueblo de México se verá enriquecido por el fomento de la paridad de género en todos los ámbitos de la sociedad. Es responsabilidad nuestra, compañeras y compañeros, entender que la participación equitativa entre hombres y mujeres en procesos políticos y de toma de decisiones no solamente fortalece la representatividad y la legitimidad de las instituciones, sino que también contribuye a la construcción de sociedades más pacíficas y sociedades más resilientes. Solo así lograremos una sociedad equitativa, empática y, desde luego, más pacífica. Es cuanto. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Finalizaremos este turno de debate de los jóvenes parlamentarios con la intervención de Malta.
Thank you. Today is the International Day for People with Epilepsy. And this week in Geneva, I met Sarita, a young human rights champion who also suffers from epilepsy. I was asked by her father to give her some advice for the future. And I told her, when you're discussing an issue, no matter how strong your argument is, no matter how passionate you are, take a step back, put yourself in that other person's shoes for a second, and try to understand the opposing argument. And this, dear colleagues, is the same advice I have been repeating in meetings all week. We have failed again because we didn't listen to the other side enough. I was shocked to hear people saying that it's better not to discuss the Gaza issue than discussing it and having a result which they don't like. Shame. Well, you know what? All of us here will go back home tomorrow to embrace our families. But those people whose families are being held hostage cannot embrace them. And those civilians in Gaza cannot go back home because they don't have a home anymore, and cannot embrace their loved ones because they are dead. Why? Because we are allowing hate to win over love and hope. And while we were here this week, In other parts of the world, hate continued to spread. Just yesterday, the Parliament of Georgia started debating a bill to ban gender affirmation for trans people, to ban adoption for same-sex couples, and even to ban LGBTIQ+ people from gathering in the streets. You know what? To our siblings in Tbilisi, we are with you. And just a few days ago, while we were in this chamber, the Russian government added the LGBTIQ+ organizations to the list of extremists and terrorists. Am I a terrorist? For what? For being true to myself? And what is my weapon? Is it the spread of love? Is it this band? Is this my weapon? Well, you know what? If wearing this band makes me a terrorist, then so be it. I will never surrender. And I wear this band for those who cannot wear it, so that they know that they have a safe space with me. And on this note, allow me to appeal to the Secretary General, whom I have the utmost respect. Please, Mr. Jugong, on behalf of all the LGBTIQ+ members of IPU, please ensure the safety and protection of all LGBTIQ+ members of the IPU who will be attending the 150th Assembly next year. There has been reports of physical violence, including by the police, extortion, and imprisonment of LGBTIQ+ people. No one should be imprisoned or face abuse for being who they are. No one should be forced to hide one's identity, including members of parliament, during the course of their duties. And while I'm at it, I reiterate a call I had already made to the president of the IPU for the establishment of a forum of LGBTIQ+ members of parliament here in IPU, in the spirit of our motto, for democracy, for everyone. Because, dear colleagues, it's not gay people who should fight for gay rights. It's not Palestinians who should fight for freedom. It's not Ukrainians who should defend their territory. It's for all of us to defend what is right and condemn what is wrong. It's for all of us to defend human rights. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, our member of EXCOM from Spain, for the good work that you have done and for chairing this session. So you have shared the co-presidency with me. So I really appreciate all that you have done. But also all colleagues who chaired with him this morning, thank you so much for having done a very good job. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for the good job. Please, a round of applause. Colleagues, we have two more speakers, but these are special guests to us. We have Dr. Philippe Paulier, who is the United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs. As many of you know, in 2023, the United Nations established a youth office to lead the engagement and advocacy for the advancement of youth issues across the United Nations. This new office, which replaced the previous office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, has also serves to promote the inclusive and effective engagement of youth and youth-led organizations in the United Nations. The United Nations Youth Office and the Envoy's Office before it have been close partners of IPU for years, especially with the Forum of Young Parliamentarians. I am very pleased to introduce to you today the leader of this new office, Dr. Felipe Paulier of Uruguay. Dr. Paulier is the first Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs of the United Nations. We are very grateful that he has been able to join us in Geneva this time. He also attended the Forum of Young Parliamentarians on Sunday and also attended the Standing Committee for United Nations earlier today. Youth are among the first victims of radicalization and conflict. Their participation in prevention and resolution of disputes is therefore essential for building a sustainable peace. In 2015, the United Nations adopted the Security Council Resolution number 2250 on youth, peace, and security. And we are happy to hear from Dr. Paulier on how parliamentarians can help implement this important resolution for a more peaceful world. And now I would welcome Dr. Paulier to the podium to address the Assembly. Dr. Paulier, you have the floor.
Honorable members of the parliamentary community from all over the world, thank you for allowing me to be at this forum. Let me thank especially Madam President of IPU and Mr. Secretary General of IPU for inviting me to be part of the 148th IPU's Assembly. And especially, let me thank you to the Chair of the Youth Parliamentarians Forum, MP Dan Carden, for the personal invitation also to join here. In a current world facing more conflicts than in any time since World War II, in a world that is witnessing the accelerated degradation of the planet due to human actions and experiencing democratic backsliding, the future ahead, especially for the future generation, is certainly alarming. 90% of the young people live in developing countries and often face negative stereotypes that they are the ones that keep perpetrating the idea of violence, which provokes a so-called policy panic. However, let me say it loud and clear. Young people embody a beacon of hope in the promise of peace. Despite the financial, legal, cultural, and social barriers faced by young people, they persist and take active roles as peace builders, as activists, as human rights defenders, as innovators, and as leaders of numerous social movements. The United Nations Security Council resolutions on youth, peace, and security have been groundbreaking in recognizing the positive role that young people play in fostering peace and preventing violence. These international frameworks need to guide all of us in working with young people as partners and not as passive observers, on working with young people as creators of initiatives and not just recipients of services. It is essential that we put these frameworks to good use together with young people to ensure that youth are systematically included in decision-making process at all levels, especially in peace-building efforts. But, unfortunately, this is not yet a reality. As we have heard during these days, although that more than half of the world's population is under 30 years old, only 2.8% of members of parliaments are under 30, and less than 1% of members of parliaments are young women. Young women specifically face structural barriers due to their age and gender, pushing them even further from gaining access to public office. When additionally factors such as race, sexual orientation, and disability are considered, new gaps arise. Younger generations are still largely absent from decision-making, despite younger generations are the one most impacted by the current political decisions or by the lack of political decisions. Young people who want to take part face multiple cultural, structural, financial, and legislative barriers in exercising their political rights. Many are disappointed and mistrust political institutions since their actions aren't recognized and their priorities are not reflected. We need political spaces and systems that actively shake up the traditional norms and modernize its institutions to channel youth political engagement to places where decisions are made and where peace agreements are negotiated. Dear parliamentarians, we urgently require youth inclusion in decision-making processes if we want to restore faith in institutions. Only peace-building efforts that are inclusive of young people in all their diversity will be sustainable. This is not only a matter of youth representation in politics. It is a cross-sectorial and human rights issue. Young people in all their diversity have the right to participate. And let me say something more. Having spaces for youth engagement is a smart decision for institutions. To meaningfully increase the representation of young people in public life and politics, more disaggregated data is necessary to inform the current status of the world on youth engagement in policy and decision-making processes, including peace processes. I call for your support to develop strong and reliable data, to create frameworks to inform policies that ensure youth political participation by removing the existing barriers to their meaningful and safe engagement is more accountable. Dear parliamentarians, at the Forum of Young Parliamentarians yesterday, I shared some concrete ways that as elected officials and members of parliaments, you can take action to advance on youth political participation for peace building. Allow me to repeat it here today because this is a shared responsibility. This is an intergenerational commitment. First, you can lead or support the youth peace and security agenda within parliamentary commissions, including accountability systems to monitor its implementation at the country level. Second, you can support the creation of youth bodies in parliament, including establishing mechanisms to ensure systematic consultations of young people in parliamentary deliberations. Third, you can advocate for the adoption of national action plans, national roadmaps, national frameworks, or even the establishment of national coalitions on youth peace and security that include specific budget allocation. Finally, you can promote and support IPU's campaign, I Say Yes to Youth in Parliaments. Dear parliamentarians, while we open spaces for young people to be part as equal partners of policy-making and decision-making processes, we must recognize the interconnected factors shaping young people's vulnerabilities, including their gender, their sexual orientation, their race, ethnicity, and disability. For that, the participation of young people needs to be fully accessible and safe. Only peace-building efforts that are inclusive of young people will be sustainable. Allow me to end by prompting you a question for discussion. If meaningful youth engagement is an imperative to build bridges for peace, which strategies and concrete actions are you taking in your parliaments to ensure this prerequisite is met? The change is intergenerational or it won't be. So we count on you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pollier, for those views which are very important to us as members of parliament, and I'm sure we will all be taking those on board as we try to make a difference, but also contribute to the agenda that is before us as we strengthen our relationship with our youths in Parliament, but also the youth globally. I would now welcome Mr. Ben Majekoduni, the Chief of Staff of UNRWA. It's coming right now. Yes. Dear colleagues, for many years, the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, have had a strong partnership. UNRWA's active role in our assemblies and its contribution to the discussions of the IPU Committee on the Middle East questions have been instrumental in advancing our understanding of the grave humanitarian crisis in Palestine and have been key in forming our approach to some of the issues at hand. The IPU remains committed to UNRWA's mission to provide relief and human development for all Palestinian refugees. We recognize the essential services of UNRWA, which it provides to millions of people, from education to healthcare to emergency assistance. These efforts go beyond politics and should be rooted in a shared belief in every individual's intrinsic human rights, dignity, and worth, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, and creed. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Ben Majekoduni, who is the Chief of Staff on UNRWA, who is here on behalf of Felipe Lazzarini, and now you have the floor to address the Assembly.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you very much, Secretary General of the IPU. Thank you also to the members of Parliament who are present for inviting UNRWA to speak. I have some rough notes, but I'm not speaking from a speech. This isn't really a moment for a speech. This is one of the oldest multilateral bodies in the world. It's quite incredible that the concept of the IPU exists, and this is a very appropriate moment to come to such a body, because we are at a moment of incredible urgency, and that requires an incredible standard, the highest standard of multilateralism. First, a few points on UNRWA. The international community has failed for 75 years to provide a political solution to the conflict in the Middle East. It has failed to provide a political solution that would do right by Palestinians, by Israelis, by the region. To fill the political vacuum, the General Assembly tasked UNRWA to provide services to Palestinians, to provide education, to provide healthcare, to provide social services, to provide other kinds of support. And in doing so, we are mandated to support the human rights of Palestinians, but also to bring a measure of stability to the region, and therefore a measure of stability and security for Israelis and for the wider region. UNRWA has been doing this for 75 years, even as the prospects for peace have got further and further away. And in the most recent years, the last 10 to 15 years, the vacuum, the political vacuum in which we have operated has become harder and harder. The operational context has become harder. The security environment has become harder. It has become more and more dangerous for the organization to operate, and yet we have continued. On the 7th of October, my second point, we saw horrendous attacks on civilians in Israel, the horrendous killing of civilians in Israel. We learned most recently from the Secretary General's Special Representative on Sexual Violence and Conflict that as well as those killings, there were also likely to have been serious acts of sexual violence. We saw these horrendous acts on the 7th of October. We saw hostages taken, and the abuses have continued. And since the 7th of October, we have witnessed what can only be described as catastrophic killing and suffering in Gaza. There are, as we understand it, almost 32,000 people who have been killed, the very large majority civilians. There are 13,000 children reported dead in Gaza in the last 6 months. While we have been overseeing the multilateral system, we have witnessed 13,000 children being killed. In Gaza, we have seen primary schools, secondary schools, places of tertiary education, places of worship, places of celebration, places of mourning, places of employment, cemeteries, roads, places that produce electricity, that produce and manage water, that produce and manage sewage, homes, all destroyed, also under our watch. I was in Gaza most recently about 6 weeks ago. The situation in the south of Gaza is one of indescribable tension. There are people everywhere. There are children absolutely everywhere. Moving from A to B, which might be a 1 or 2 kilometer drive, which is a long way in the tiny space that is Gaza. Moving from A to B requires going first to N or M because you have to go around places of ground fighting. You have to go around places where missiles are being dropped. The most frightened people that I met in Gaza, by my perception, were not children, surprisingly. Children can be found playing in the streets, even while you can hear machine gun fire in the background and see missile smoke arising. Their resilience enables them to play. The most frightened people are their parents, who stare at their children and wonder how they can provide for them, how they can keep them safe. What will their future be in Gaza, even if the fighting were to stop tomorrow? Where will they go to school? Where will they have their birthdays? What will they eat? Where will they live? What jobs can they aspire to? How do they keep them away from militancy? Gaza is a horrible place. If you drive along the border from Rafah to the water, it's a very short border, you'll see people digging in the earth with their hands, trying to find roots from trees that have long since been cut down to be burnt. They're searching for roots that they can then also burn, or they can sell, or in some cases eat. It is an awful, awful place. And it is an awful place within walking distance, within sight almost, of running water, running electricity, of hospitals, of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of truckloads of food. More than any conflict, every conflict is to some extent a political conflict. More than any conflict, this is a political conflict. And the humanitarian crisis is a fundamentally political humanitarian crisis. My third point, within this situation, UNRWA, which has 13,000 staff in Gaza because of our normal service delivery, our normal running of schools and healthcare, UNRWA is serving as the platform of just about every aspect of humanitarian assistance, from facilitating the movement of trucks to the distribution of food to helping the Bank of Palestine move cash from the north to the south so that the economy can still keep functioning, because the economy is essential to the humanitarian survival. UNRWA has been recognized by the regional groups of member states at the General Assembly, at the Security Council, as being a vital lifeline for humanitarian action in Gaza. It has also been recognized as an essential piece of the political solution going forward and of the equation for peace in this region. Member states have recalled time and time again that UNRWA's role has been vital to the stability of the region, for Palestinians and for Israelis and for the wider region. And UNRWA is essential in another way that is difficult to define, that is not quantifiable. But when one talks to Palestinians, particularly in Gaza, Palestinians who have nothing, they will say, at least there is still UNRWA. While UNRWA continues to exist, I have some hope that we have not been forgotten, that there may be a future at the end of this hell. I make these points because UNRWA's role is not assured. We are mandated by the General Assembly, but we are being undermined. The conditions in which we operate are such that we've seen our funding withdrawn. We have seen levels of political support withdrawn because of the inevitable consequences of working in the difficult environment that we have been tasked to work in. I would conclude my comments by saying that the situation in Gaza is perhaps most preeminent, most perfect as an example of a situation that desperately requires a multilateral solution. It requires a solution that is based on human rights, that is based on international law, that it is based on political consensus. It requires that solution now. That solution is required for Palestinians, it's required for Israelis, it's required for the region. And that solution is not forthcoming. We don't see it on the horizon. And so this appeal to you is to ask you all, upon your return home, with your influence, with your commitment to multilateralism, to your interest in these issues, to please take these thoughts home, to ask and inspire your parliaments and your governments to bring their energy, to bring their political weight, to resolve a humanitarian catastrophe that is also a political catastrophe, that is also a peace and security catastrophe that will only get worse, not only for Palestinians, but for the wider region. The situation desperately needs your help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you. Dr. Felipe? Where is Dr. Felipe? Please come up because I'm going to open the discussion. I'm sorry, members, because of time, we will only allow 3 interventions and then they will respond if you have any. Who would like to take the floor? Morocco, is that Morocco? Morocco. And who else? Morocco. India? Morocco. India and Iraq. Okay. Okay, so we will begin with, we will take all your interventions and then they will respond together. I've seen Iraq already. I'm sorry, we already have 3. We already have 3. So Morocco, India, then Iraq. Morocco, you have the floor.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. طبقا لمقتضيات المادة 22 وخاصة الفقرة الثانية منها من النظام الأساسي للاتحاد البرلماني الدولي، أخذ الكلمة في إطار حق الرد على ما جاء من مغالطات على لسان ممثل البرلمان الجزائري الذي أبى إلا أن يردد نفس الأسطوانة المشروخة حول الصحراء المغربية ويقوم بتغليط هذه الجلسة العامة المحترمة. في هذا السياق أود أن أصحح المعلومات الخاطئة.
Morocco, hold on. I am sorry, I think it might have been that Algeria took the floor and you would like your right of reply. Please bear with me. Let's have this discussion first, and then we will give you your right to reply. Okay, Morocco? So we will add one more country that was raising. Now, Iraq, you're already there. Who is next to you? Iran and Lebanon, but then let's go to India. India, you have the floor. 2 minutes.
Honorable Chairperson and distinguished delegates, as a proud member of the IPU, India stands committed to upholding the values of transparency and accountability. For the 3rd consecutive year, India is pleased to participate in IPU Assembly's general debate, particularly in the special accountability segment. This segment provides a valuable platform for exchanging good practices.
India, sorry. I'll give you a chance when we reach that special segment. Right now, it's either you ask a question to UNRWA or
Thank you.
the Assistant Secretary General for Youth at the United Nations. Those are the only interventions I would allow now. So, Iraq, did you want to talk about this? Yes, please. Iraq, you have the floor.
شكرا جزيلا. في الحقيقة أنا أستغرب من الأخ رئيس الأونروا أن يردد أكاذيب تم دحضها وتفنيدها منذ فترة طويلة حتى من مصادر إسرائيلية صهيونية وليس فقط من مصادر محايدة دولية. لم يتعرض أحد إلى الاعتداء الجنسي والاغتصاب في 7 أكتوبر، ولم تكن هناك ذبح للأطفال كما تسرب إلى بعض الإعلام العالمي كذباً وزوراً، وتبين أن هذه الأمور كلها كانت أكاذيب من الدعاية الصهيونية لتبرير الإبادة الجماعية التي يتعرض لها الشعب الفلسطيني في غزة. وبالتالي نحن نستغرب من ترداد هذا الكلام في هذا المحفل الدولي المحترم، أن يتم ترداد مثل هذه الأكاذيب الصهيونية مرة أخرى. نحن نقدر عالياً ما تقوم به الأونروا من إغاثة اللاجئين في فلسطين، ولكن نستنكر في الحقيقة ترداد مثل هذه الأمور. وإن القضية الفلسطينية لم تبدأ من 7 أكتوبر، و7 أكتوبر هو فعل مقاومة لعدوان محتل، دولة غاصبة محتلة. الأمم المتحدة كل القوانين الدولية تعترف بأن وجود إسرائيل في هذه المناطق هو احتلال، ومن حق الشعوب الحرة أن تقاوم المحتل أينما كان. وإن الذي حدث الآن نحن نرى بعض المتحدثين يتحدثون عن بكل تأكيد عن دفاع أوكرانيا ضد روسيا. طيب، ولماذا ليس هذا الحق يعطى للشعب الفلسطيني؟ نحن جميعا نعتز، معظم الدول التي عانت من الكولونياليزم والاحتلال تعتز بتاريخها النضالي في مقاومة الاستعمار، وكانت هذه المقاومة بالحرب والعنف، لأن الاستعمار لم يأتي بالورود وإنما أتى بالعنف والقتل. فكلنا في تاريخنا نعتز بأنه يوما من الأيام قاتلنا المحتلين من أجل أن نطردهم من بلادنا، والفلسطينيون عانوا من هذا الأمر أكثر من 75 عاما، وبذلك الآن حق لهم أن يدافعوا عن أنفسهم، وأن يكون لهم كل الحق في أن يطردوا الغزاة المحتلين الذين يقومون بإبادتهم جماعيا. ومن العار للمجتمع الدولي أن يبقى متفرجا، لا يستطيع حتى في هذا المحفل الدولي البرلماني المحترم يعجز من أن يصدر قرارا لوقف إطلاق النار. هذا عار على المجتمع الدولي أن يتفرج على أطفال غزة وهم يقتلون بالقنابل والصواريخ، وهم يقتلون بالرصاص، وهم يقتلون بالتجويع أيضا. عار على المجتمع الدولي أن يرى أن الإبادة الجماعية تجري بشكل واضح على مرأى ومسمع المجتمع الدولي، ومع ذلك لا يستطيع أن يحرك ساكنا ضد هذا النظام المتغطرس المتجبر. شكرا جزيلا. وسؤالي الأخير للسيد رئيس الأونروا: ادعت أمريكا بأن بعض موظفي الوكالة عملوا مع حماس، وتبين لاحقا أن هذا الأمر مجرد ادعاء عاري عن الصحة. فماذا هو رأي السيد رئيس المنظمة؟
Please, colleagues, we don't have much time, so please stick your comments to your question or your comments to only 2 minutes. Lebanon. Okay. Iran. Okay. So, is taking the floor? Okay, go ahead, Iran.
بسم الله الرحمن. من فارسی صحبت میکنم. در وقت خودمون میایم پشت تریبون صحبت میکنیم. اونجا مطالب رو عرض میکنم.
Go ahead, it's your time. Iran? Go ahead.
همینجا صحبت کنیم. خب بعد چون مطالب بنا بود بر اساس صحبت‌ها و وقتی که تعیین شده بود در مورد اون نمایندگان جوان صحبت کنم، اگر رئیس تشخیص میدن که از همینجا صحبت کنم مطالب رو اینجا عرض کنم، اگر نه که پشت تریبون ساعت 5 مطالبمون رو پشت تریبون مطرح میکنیم.
No, unless it's something else, but if you're addressing the two speakers who just spoke, you have to address them from your seat, unless you're talking about something else.
من خیلی مختصر در مورد مطالبی که مطرح شد که یک جانبه بود فقط این رو میگم، نسل‌کشی که امروز در توسط رژیم غاصب صهیونیست داره به صورت یک جانبه در مقابل چشم نهادهای به اصطلاح حقوق بشری اتفاق میفته که محاصره 360 درجه غزه و فلسطین رو شاهدیم که حتی امروز جوانان، زنان و کودکان که بیش از 33,000 نفر اونجا در این ماه‌های اخیر نسل‌کشی صورت گرفت، حتی اجازه دسترسی غذا و آب به اونها داده نمیشه و حتی برای درمان اونها اجازه دارو داده نمیشه. بیمارستان‌ها مورد حجم قرار گرفت. تا به الان چند هزار امدادگر و خبرنگار که در همه معاهده‌های بین المللی اونها اجازه فعالیت دارند، حتی در بدترین شرایط جنگی هیچ وقت همچین قساوتی صورت نگرفته. انتظارمون اینه در این حضور پارلمان‌های بین المللی که قطعاً قدرت بسیار زیادی داره IPU و نماینده واقعی مردمیه که امروز در خود اروپا چند صد هزار نفر در دفاع از مردم، زنان و کودکان و جوانان غزه میان در خیابونها، در همین سوئیس و در بسیاری از کشورهای اروپایی هم مردم آمدند اعتراض و انزجار خودشون از این نسل‌کشی ماشین رژیم صهیونیستی گفتند. انتظارمون اینه که دولت مردا هم حرف مردمشون رو بشنوند و بیش از این اجازه نسل‌کشی توسط امریکا و رژیم غاصب صهیونیستی داده نشه.
Thank you very much. Those were the two interventions. I think our Assistant Secretary, United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Youth hasn't had any questions. So please, UNRWA representative, you can address them on the issues that were raised.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the two questions, or the comment was the second one. From Iraq, I'd like to acknowledge the very warm support from the government of Iraq for UNRWA over many years, including recently. As regards to the representative's comment on sexual violence, this is a finding not of UNRWA, it's a finding of the Secretary General's representative on sexual violence in conflict in a report that she issued a few weeks ago, and I would refer him to that report. The representative from Iran mentioned, by way of example, the numbers of journalists killed. The representative of Iraq also mentioned the numbers of children. In fact, I would agree with both of them. By our calculations, there have been more children, more journalists, more UN staff killed in Gaza in the last 6 months than in any conflict ever. At this rate, at least since the creation of the United Nations. Indeed, the situation is catastrophic. It is appalling, and it needs to be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the two of you, for having participated with us in this assembly, and we hope to keep working together with you in our future assemblies. Thank you so much, and wish you all the best. Going to the working
that question. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that one.
Okay. Dear colleagues, we now go to our special segment, which is on accountability. I would like to welcome you all to the 5th edition of the special accountability section of the general debate. This section is very dear to our hearts, as we are a member-driven institution that has a robust mandate to nurture a culture of mutual accountability on all levels. Indeed, an accountable IPU is an organization in which the Assembly decisions are taken back to our four corners of the world and translated into national realities for the well-being of the people. When I ran for president, this was one of the points I made during my campaign and will be underscoring during my tenure. We need to walk the talk and implement the decisions that we make here at IPU. We have a duty towards our constituents to switch our actions towards and translate global commitments embedded in IPU declarations, resolutions, and outcomes into national realities. Accountability on all levels also means that member parliaments need to share details on results accomplished in follow-up to IPU decisions to the organization. As per Article 6 and 7 of the IPU statutes, members should share details on implementing the decisions and resolutions they adopt during IPU assemblies and meetings. To facilitate this process each year, a number of parliaments from each geopolitical group are designated to report and answer a questionnaire that the IPU Secretariat prepares and sends in March every year. Of course, all voluntary responses are equally welcome. Based on these responses, the IPU prepares a report and presents in October. I will now give the floor to the representative of Ambassador Ander Philip, who has just gone to another committee, which will also have to report to us at a later stage. And Ander Philip is the Director of Member Relations at the IPU. And now we have our able young person here. And as you know, we are busy empowering the youth also. So he is young and is going to present this report on behalf of Ambassador Ander Philip. You have the floor, Mr. Youngman. Mr. Mauricio.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I'm here on behalf of Ambassador Philip, who had to go to another meeting. And I just want to make a few remarks on the 2023 member reporting exercise. So, as you can see, last year we had a really good response rate with 32 out of the 45 members that were designated to report, submitting responses to the survey that informed the Secretary General's 2023 report on the implementation by IPU members of resolutions and decisions. Another 8 members contributed voluntarily. So thank you, really thank you to all the members that played the game and that provided really good examples of follow-up. We have made an active effort to promote your good practices, which of course have been showcased in the Secretary General's report, at the IPU website, and also at the Data and Accountability booth during IPU assemblies. Of course, although the 71% response rate that we achieved in 2023 improved over the last few years, we would like to see all members scheduled to report fulfilling this statutory obligation and sharing good results with us. Next slide, please. As such, we would also like to encourage the geopolitical groups and remind the member parliaments scheduled to report to participate in the annual survey on good practices on implementing IPU decisions. Next slide, please. In 2024, we have the members that are displayed on the screen that are scheduled to report. We shared our annual survey with the IPU group secretaries about 2 weeks ago. And if you have not received it, please email us at the Secretariat and we will be very happy to provide you with a copy of the survey. And in the spirit of accountability and mutual corroboration, we really encourage you to respond. That's it for me. Thank you so much, Madam President, and thank you for your kind words.
Thank you so much, Mauricio Clausa, for this presentation. And we will all agree, members, that in recent years, the IPU has adopted a number of resolutions and declarations, outcome documents, and decisions on various topics, such as climate change, gender equality, peaceful coexistence, and humanitarian crisis. Today, we are kindly inviting you to share with your colleagues what you have done to give life to these commitments, particularly in the areas of parliamentary solidarity, to defend the human rights of parliamentarians, and second, parliamentary engagement for the promotion of inclusive societies, and 3, parliamentary action to tackle climate change. So you're kindly invited to make the best of this segment and share your best practices, actions, policies, and ideas with the parliamentary community present in the room. And the contributions that will be made in this segment will be made from your seats, not on the podium. But also you will be addressing, because of the time constraints, you may not be able to address all the 3 issues. You can address one. And I have a list of...
Australia, then Azerbaijan.
Yeah, I have a list of people who have requested, or rather delegates who have requested the floor. And we will begin with Australia. And this will be followed by a video presentation from the Chinese delegation that has been shared with us.
From Azerbaijan. I know, but there was a change.
Okay, I'm told there's a change. The video which will be played first is the one from Azerbaijan, and then Cabo Verde will follow. So Australia, Deborah O'Neill, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And it is my pleasure here, noting that my friends from Tonga are sitting right in front of me here in this forum, to report on parliamentary action to tackle climate change. Madam President and fellow delegates, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak on Australia's action on climate change in the spirit just described by the President. Australia recognises climate change as the greatest shared threat to our region and is committed to working with our Pacific Island neighbours and Southeast Asian partners to strengthen climate resilience and fulfil our Paris Agreement obligations. Last year, Australia and Tuvalu signed the world's first bilateral agreement on climate mobility. The agreement is based on the Tuvaluan values of neighbourliness, care and mutual respect, or Falapili, whereby our nations have come together to navigate the shared challenge of climate change. By 2050, it is estimated that over half of the Tuvalu capital, Funafuti, which is currently home to over 6,000 people, will be flooded. In recognition of this immediate crisis, and under the Australia-Tuvalu-Falapili Union Treaty, special visa arrangements will be put in place for the Tuvaluans to live, work and study in Australia. In addition to the $16.9 million, an additional $16.9 million will be provided by Australia for the Tuvalu Coastal Adaptation Project to build the island's climate resistance. The Union Treaty is one of many initiatives undertaken by Australia to support our Pacific Island neighbours. It's complemented by Australia's climate finance, which supports countries in our regions to adapt to the increasing impacts of climate change. In acting on our commitments to climate finance under the Paris Agreement, Australia expects to deliver $3 billion to the global goal of supporting countries in our region to adapt to the impacts of climate change over the period 2020 to 2025. Madam President, I seek your guidance. I can see a red light flashing down there. Does that indicate I should stop my contribution? Madam President, I'm just seeking, is that red light an indicator for all of us speaking? And as soon as the red light goes on, we should cease our contribution? Is that what the process is?
What did you say? It's 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes. Is it done? Australia, are you done?
Well, I was seeking your clarification because once the red light started flashing, Madam President, I wasn't sure if that was for me or if it was just flashing.
Sorry, I didn't say in the beginning. It is 3 minutes, so you still have time. I think there was something wrong there.
Thank you.
So you still have, when you started seeking clarification, you were at your second minute.
Thank you very much.
So you had spent 1 minute already. So
ignore the red light.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Wait a second, put the 2 minutes instead of 3 now. 2 minutes? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So finally, if I can just conclude, Australia is also active in seeking partnership and securing collaboration with the Southeast Asian partners to address the climate change challenge. Earlier this month at the ASEAN-Australia Special Summit, Australia took steps to strengthen its cooperative partnerships with Southeast Asia with a $10 million commitment to a climate and clean energy window. The window will provide multi-year funding for climate and clean energy programs, including technical capacity building, and ensure that Australia and Southeast Asian countries share expertise and learnings. These initiatives are just a few examples of the practical ways in which Australia is working in our region and alongside our neighbours to strengthen climate change cooperation and resilience. I thank the Assembly.
Thank you so much, Australia. Now we will have a video from Azerbaijan, and then it will be followed by the remarks from Azerbaijan, and then we will have a video from China, and then Cape Verde will follow. Video, please.
This is Azerbaijan, a land where the East embraces the West. Ancient and modern cultures collide. A bright and diversified world. Every stone holds a great history. A fusion of various cultures takes place. And the region is abundant with magnificent works of art which are engraved in our history. It's a land enriched with traditions and national wealth, paving a path towards a hopeful and prosperous future. Here, the old Silk Road has left a profound and lasting impact. A heaven nestled between the majestic Caucasian mountains and the vibrant Caspian Sea. This is the place for those who believe in the bounties of nature, cherish the blessings bestowed upon them, and seek miracles in every corner. A land of untold legends waiting to be discovered. Endless green forests, icy waters, sunny fields, and bonfires that burn eternally. A land of peace, covered with the cool embrace of Khazri and warm whispers of Gilavar. This place is like a beacon, illuminating hope for tomorrow, where living in harmony with nature is a way of life. Hospitality thrives in this land, where friendly and triumphant people reside. It's a land where fresh ideas are born, and diverse experiences open doors to fascinating and innovative ideas. And with its vast experience and untapped potential, Azerbaijan stands ready to contribute to a sustainable future. Join us at COP29.
Good afternoon. The floor for Azerbaijan.
Thank you. Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Azerbaijan has been honored to host COP29 this year. We are sure this exciting event will shed a light to enormous problems challenging by the climate change. We are passing through a very responsible period of transition from traditional to alternative energy. Clean environment and green development are one of 5 priority areas of the new socio-economic development strategy until 2030. With several projects on renewable energy being underway, the share of the renewables in the total energy capacity of our country is expected to surpass 37% by 2030. The fastest way to reduce global warming in the short term is to reduce methane emissions. Azerbaijan has recently announced joining the Global Methane Pledge Initiative, an important voluntary commitment by nations to reduce their emissions of methane. Last year, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Hungary, and Romania signed a memorandum of understanding on the establishment of a joint venture for the Azerbaijan-EU Green Corridor project. Under this project, it is planned to supply green electricity produced in Azerbaijan through Georgia and Black Sea to Romania for subsequent transportation to Hungary and the rest of Europe. Azerbaijan, which is a traditional player in the energy export scene, has been actively embracing the shift towards green energy. One of its biggest regions, Karabakh Economic Zone, was announced as the green energy areas and applies green economic concept for building here. Additionally, Azerbaijan proposed the creation of a carbon neutral zone by 2050 in the territories liberated from occupation. Azerbaijan is recognized worldwide as a country that makes a great contribution to global climate policy. The fact that the country is also entrusted to host the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change is an obvious manifestation of the international assessment of this activity and the confidence placed in it. We decided to be a front runner in green transition and keen to invest part of oil and gas revenues in renewables. This year, the country has set up first electrobuses and electro-taxis into exploitation. Active participation of private business in solving the climate change challenges is very welcomed, and to foster the process, the parliaments will further need to create more favorable legislative actions, for instance, by offering privileged tax corridor for the subjects in this sector. Azerbaijan has announced 2024 the Green World Solidarity Year. We have plenty of sunny days, and we have too much sources to generate renewable energy. COP29 will be a brilliant chance for sharing experience, and will look forward for generating new initiatives. Azerbaijan invites you all to Solidarity for Green Planet. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you very much for keeping the time. We'll have a video on China now.
China is a country of action in promoting global climate governance and spares no efforts in promoting green development, energy revolution, and international cooperation on climate change, contributing significantly to global climate governments. China leads the world on many counts in terms of a forested area, which accounts for 1/4 of the world's total. In the investment of renewable energy, ranking first for 7 consecutive years, with the installed power capacity of renewables over 1.4 billion kilowatts, surpassing coal power, and in the output and sales of new energy vehicles, with half of the world's NEVs running on Chinese road. China contributes 50% of the world's wind power equipment and 80% of photovoltaic power equipment, playing a significant role in the declining of the global renewable energy cost and the promoting of the global green and low-carbon transformation. The National People's Congress actively plays its part, comprehensively fulfilling its commitments to the consensus reached on the IPU and other multilateral platforms. Important progress has been made in advancing and improving laws and regulations concerning climate change. China has successfully enacted and implemented a number of laws in this regard, such as the Energy Conservation Law, Promotion of Clean Production Law, Renewable Energy Law, and Circular Economy Promotion Law, which fortify legal safeguards for China's efforts in addressing climate change and achieving carbon peaking and neutrality. The Standing Committee of the National People's Congress has incorporated the research and formulation of specialized laws for addressing climate change and achieving carbon peaking and neutrality in its legislative planning. In June 2023, the National People's Congress of China adopted the Foreign Relations Law, explicitly stating China's active participation in global environmental and climate governance, enhancing green and low-carbon international cooperation.
Thank you, China. Our next speaker is from Cabo Verde. Cabo Verde.
Sim, boa tarde, muito obrigado. Primeiro, para pedir desculpa relativamente às imagens, porque nós tínhamos enviado as imagens, mas problema de comunicação, comunicam-nos agora que não foram recebidas as imagens. Portanto, da terra de Morabeza, manifestamos o nosso compromisso com a resiliência e o ambiente. Como pequeno Estado insular em desenvolvimento, Cabo Verde tem uma das mais baixas emissões per capita de gases com efeito de estufa, 90% das quais provenientes da produção de energia, está, no entanto, entre os países mais vulneráveis às alterações climáticas. Na sua contribuição nacionalmente determinada 2020, Cabo Verde identifica 5 contribuições para a mitigação, incluindo eficiência energética e energias renováveis, transporte de baixo carbono, soluções baseadas na natureza e turismo sustentável, e 9 contribuições para adaptação, incluindo gestão da água, segurança alimentar, gestão costeira e ordenamento do território e redução do risco de desastre. Portanto, sabemos onde estamos e onde queremos chegar. Para fazer a transição para a economia de zero emissão de dióxido de carbono, Cabo Verde prioriza a economia azul e circular e a digitalização. Isto deve levar a uma redução de 1/5 das emissões do país em comparação com o cenário de negócios usual e reforçar a resiliência. Temos metas e objetivos ambiciosos. Até 2030, atingir mais de 54% de penetração de energias renováveis na produção e armazenamento de energia e de eletricidade. Queremos atingir 100% de produção de eletricidade através de energias renováveis em 2040, 100% da mobilidade elétrica em 2050 e atingir a neutralidade carbónica em 2050. Mas a educação de Cabo Verde não para por aí. Com a força do mar que nos abraça, o país está comprometido em preservar a biodiversidade marinha. Parques marinhos são estabelecidos, oferecendo refúgios seguros para um grande número de espécies marinhas. Reconhecemos também que o país é vulnerável a diversos riscos: atividades vulcânicas, secas severas e prolongadas, inundações e chuvas torrenciais, levando a deslizamentos e alagamentos, todos com importantes consequências sociais e econômicas. Os impactos atuais e futuros do aumento do nível do mar, salinização, submersão e erosão também serão significativos na infraestrutura costeira essencial, assentamentos humanos e ecossistemas naturais. Temos estado a refletir sobre as políticas inovadoras de gestão de resíduos em Cabo Verde. O país está na vanguarda da redução de resíduos plásticos, promovendo práticas sustentáveis e consciencializando a população sobre a importância de preservar a beleza natural das ilhas. Cabo Verde dispõe de uma carta de políticas de economia azul, uma zona especial de economia marítima, campus do mar orientado para o conhecimento, investigação e qualificação profissional. Cerca de 7% do mar territorial classificado como áreas marinhas. Grande exemplo que vamos apresentar é o recente acordo assinado entre Cabo Verde e Portugal para converter a dívida em investimento no Fundo Climático e Ambiental. Junto trilhamos o caminho para uma amanhã desenvolvido e sustentável. Muito obrigado.
Well, thank you very much. Sorry for cutting, but time is a bit short. We'll have a video on Chile, and then we'll be followed by remarks from Chile. So video, please.
Felipe, Belén, Germán, Marta y Marcelo trabajan en la Cámara de Diputados y son el ejemplo de cómo es posible avanzar en la inclusión de las personas con síndrome de Down. Juntos participaron en la conmemoración del Día Mundial de este síndrome en compañía de representantes de la Fundación Down 21, diputados y funcionarios de la corporación. Un anhelo de Felipe es que sean más quienes puedan incorporarse al mundo laboral.
A mí me gustaría que algunos de mis amigos que trabajen en cualquier otro lugar de trabajo, ahí pueden estar contentos y todos, que lo respeten y que le ayuden.
Así como se avanza en inclusión, en la ceremonia se hizo un llamado también a potenciar reformas legislativas que garanticen igualdad, por ejemplo, en el derecho a una educación inclusiva, tal como comentó Irma Iglesias, presidenta de la Fundación Down 21.
Necesitamos un solo sistema de educación para poder llegar a una vida autónoma de las personas con síndrome de Down. No puede ser que por el simple hecho de tener discapacidad a una persona se derive a una escuela aparte del resto de la sociedad. Entonces, ¿cómo construimos democracia?
Fue Felipe quien, en representación de sus compañeras, señaló también la necesidad de avanzar en la protección de sus derechos sexuales y reproductivos, demanda que fue respaldada por la vicepresidenta de la Cámara de Diputados, Loreto Carvajal.
Hoy día, cuando se promueve de cierta forma, ¿cierto?, la esterilización o impedir de los derechos reproductivos, como todo ser humano tiene el legítimo derecho a que se le reconozca, nos parece de una aberración tremenda. Nosotros creemos que, sin perjuicio que haya habido un decreto que esto lo impedía, en algunas ocasiones no ha habido el seguimiento, a lo mejor la fiscalización, y es de ahí donde hay un llamado urgente a fiscalizar esta temática.
Junto a estas demandas también se expuso la necesidad de avanzar en estimulación temprana para las y los bebés con síndrome de Down, pues al igual que con todas las personas, las diferencias de oportunidades se marcan desde la cuna.
Chile, floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, presidente, secretario, estimados colegas. Ese video que vieron ustedes hoy día es un video que nace de un proyecto que ya en la Cámara de Diputados tiene 14 años de vida. Hay 14 años durante han trabajado niños Down colaborándonos a nosotros los parlamentarios dentro de la Cámara. ¿Y por qué lo trajimos acá a esta sala? Porque nosotros creemos en el Parlamento chileno, nosotros creemos en la Cámara de Diputados chilena, que lo importante no es solamente pedirle al mundo privado hacer cambios, sino que los cambios tienen que nacer desde el propio seno de la profundidad de la democracia, que es el Parlamento. Fundamentalmente a nosotros nos guía algo que lamentablemente, presidente, por su intermedio, tengo que señalar, no hemos visto durante esta jornada, que es aceptar al otro como un legítimo otro. Si nosotros queremos hacer política inclusiva, nosotros tenemos que encontrar la verdad en el adversario, en el beneficiario de nuestra política pública. Nosotros no podemos quedarnos atrincherados en nuestras propias ideas. Y lo que hemos visto aquí durante estos 3 días, lamentablemente, no es aquello. la inclusión es el leitmotiv de toda acción política. Nosotros nos levantamos y acostamos en las noches para generar inclusión en el mundo laboral, en el mundo de los discapacitados, en el mundo educacional, en el mundo de los discapacitados, en el mundo de la pobreza, para que pueda tener mejores perspectivas de vida, para que puedan crecer en los distintos mundos, matrimonio igualitario, libertad de creencia, apoyar a las minorías para que puedan ser mejor representadas. En eso estamos trabajando nosotros en la Cámara de Diputados, en el Parlamento chileno. Nuestra invitación, presidente, por su intermedio, es que aceptemos al otro como un legítimo otro, que salgamos de nuestras trincheras, que seamos capaces de reconocer legítimas verdades en el que hoy día es adversario nuestro. Y en segundo lugar, me permite una sugerencia. Creemos muy importante en esta delegación que así como se ha hablado de juventud, se ha hablado de inclusión, se ha hablado de discapacidad, pudiésemos generar en la UIP, organismo tan importante para la democracia de este país, una secretaría permanente del mundo de la discapacidad, para así generar de verdad inclusión, no solamente declaraciones. Ese video, esos niños Down que trabajan con nosotros, están trabajando antes de la ley que ya tenemos en Chile, afortunadamente, de inclusión laboral. Muchas gracias.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I totally agree with you, and hopefully the Secretary General have taken note on that, and maybe to discuss on one of the committees. Next we'll have Mexico, to be followed by Indonesia. So Mexico, 3 minutes, please.
Muchas gracias, estimados compañeros parlamentarios. Les saludo con mucho respeto y aprecio. En esta ocasión compartiré los avances que la Cámara de Diputados de México ha tenido en materia de lucha contra el cambio climático. En México contamos con una ley especial en materia de cambio climático. Esta ley se encarga de otorgar responsabilidades y obligaciones concretas a los 3 niveles de gobierno de nuestro país. Fue promulgada exactamente hace 10 años y es un marco normativo que se encuentra en constante actualización, lo cual obliga a que las autoridades de todos los niveles actúen en consecuencia. Recientemente se modificó este marco normativo para implementar programas para la sustitución gradual de vehículos con motor de combustión por vehículos híbridos y eléctricos dentro de las dependencias y entidades de la Administración Pública Federal, las entidades federativas y los municipios. Además de contar con una ley especial de cambio climático, contamos con una ley de transición energética que establece las bases para la transición hacia un modelo energético sostenible y bajo en emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero. Esta ley ha permitido que la Cámara de Diputados continúe impulsando la transición energética, pese a que no es precisamente una prioridad del gobierno mexicano. De ahí la importancia de los parlamentos como contrapeso institucional, pues si bien para el actual gobierno no es una prioridad, la legislación emanada del Parlamento le establece obligaciones medibles y cuantificables presupuestal y administrativamente que lo obligan a continuar hacia la transición energética. En ese sentido, los parlamentos nos convertimos en los guardianes de la institucionalidad, vigilando que sea el imperio de la ley el que rija las decisiones públicas y no la decisión unilateral de una sola persona. Tengo el orgullo de representar a un parlamento que se toma muy en serio el cambio climático. Tan es así que contamos con una comisión ordinaria de cambio climático y sostenibilidad, una de las comisiones más activas de nuestro Congreso. Tan solo ahorita se encuentra analizando 69 propuestas de reformas y acciones legislativas en materia de mitigación del cambio climático. Para la Cámara de Diputados, el cambio climático es una preocupación central, pues somos conscientes del impacto en la seguridad, la economía y el bienestar de la ciudadanía mexicana. Somos un país altamente vulnerable a los fenómenos climáticos extremos y reconocemos la urgencia de abordar este desafío de manera integral. La protección de los recursos naturales, la biodiversidad y la resiliencia de las comunidades ante los efectos del cambio climático son prioridades fundamentales para la Cámara de Diputados. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mexico. We'll go to Indonesia, to be followed by Tunisia. Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. President, Secretary General, and honorable delegates. Good afternoon. On behalf of the House of Representatives of Republic of Indonesia, I would like to extend my appreciation for the Governing Council to provide this special accountability segment. Indonesia commitment to IPU resolution is resolute and unwavering. We have worked constantly to follow up declaration and resolution relating to a number of issues. First of all, regarding parliamentary action to tackle climate change, the Indonesian House is committed to support green economy transition, including energy transition. We continue to prioritize the finalization of the new and renewable energy bills, phase out fossil fuel subsidies, put carbon market scheme into effect, and strive to reach the forestry and other land use net sink 2030. In addition, currently, we are in the deliberation of the Bill of the Management of Climate Change as the legal foundation for the national effort on responding to the challenges pertaining to climate change so that it could be comprehensive, systematic, and integrated. Through this bill, we hope to set the integrated approach in both national and province efforts through budgeting and oversight function. In this opportunity, I would like to also extend our invitation to you to join parliamentary meeting on the occasion of the 10th World Water Forum in Bali, co-hosted by Indonesian Parliament and the IPU on May 19 until 2022. We look forward to seeing you there to strengthen our effort to ensure water security and water for prosperity. Second, with regard to the commitment and on the implementation of Marrakesh Communique on encouraging collective efforts to promote inclusive and peaceful coexistence and to uphold the rule of law, the House of Representatives of Republic of Indonesia believe that diversity is not the source of conflicts. Instead, it is a blessing from God through which we could strengthen our solidarity to achieve peace and better society. As a nation which upholds the principle of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or unity in diversity, we strive to promote mutual understanding, dialogue, and respect to diversity to the people. Currently, we are in the deliberation of bill on protection of religious leaders and religious symbols as part of the commitment to make sure that all religious leaders and religious symbols in which these religions are recognized officially by the country and treated and respected equally. To conclude, I would like to reiterate Indonesian Parliament commitment to contribute our parts to promote an inclusive, peaceful, and resilient society, and at the same time to uphold respect to diversity for maintaining unity and harmony. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Well, thank you very much. We'll go to Tunisia and followed by Canada. Tunisia, floor is yours. Tunisia.
السيدة الرئيسة، السيد الأمين العام والحضور الكريم، إن سعادتي واعتزازي كبيران بالتواجد بينكم اليوم في جنيف مدينة الفنون والجمال. لا شك أن حماية البيئة والحق في بيئة سليمة يمثلان أولوية وطنية وفقاً لمقتضيات توطئة دستور 25 جويلية 2022 للجمهورية التونسية، والتي تنص أن لا تنمية مستمرة دائمة إلا في بيئة سليمة خالية من كل أسباب التلوث. سيداتي سادتي، يعد تغيير المناخ أزمة عالمية بدأت آثارها في الظهور، ولكن بطريقة متباينة ومتفاوتة من دولة إلى أخرى، إذ لا يوجد أي ركن من عالمنا هذا بمنأى عن الآثار المدمرة للتغيرات المناخية. وما نشهده اليوم هو أن الدول الأكثر تلوثاً هي الدول الأكثر هشاشة والأكثر عرضة لتداعيات هذه الآفة العالمية. ومن جهة أخرى تمثل الدول المتقدمة السبب الرئيسي في التغيرات المناخية والاحتباس الحراري من خلال أنشطتها التي لم تراعي البعد البيئي. ولعل تونس من بين الأمثلة الأكثر وضوحاً، فبالرغم من أن مساهمتها في ظاهرة الاحتباس الحراري ضئيلة بنسبة لا تتجاوز 0.7% من انبعاثات الغازات الدافئة العالمية، إلا أنها من أكثر البلدان عرضة للتغير المناخي وتضاؤل الموارد المائية وتآكل السواحل. ولمجابهة هذه المخاطر تعمل تونس على تضافر جهود جميع الفاعلين والأطراف المتداخلة من وزارات وبرلمان ومجتمع مدني من أجل تعزيز التكيف والقدرة على الصمود. وقد مكنت هذه المقاربة التشاركية من وضع استراتيجية وطنية للانتقال الإيكولوجي منذ بداية سنة 2023 أدمجت فيها أهداف برنامج التنمية المستدامة من أجل الاستجابة لتطلعات تونس لمواكبة التغيرات العالمية. وعلى المستوى التشريعي يعمل البرلمان التونسي بتناغم مع الحكومة منذ انتصابه في مارس 2022 على مراجعة القوانين البيئية، مجلات المياه، مجلات الغابات، الطاقات المتجددة، حتى تتوائم مع الاتفاقيات الدولية وتستجيب لتحديات الواقع المتغير، حيث تم تنقيح القانون عدد 41 لسنة 1996 والمتعلق بالنفايات وبمراقبة التصرف فيها وإزالتها، سن قانون عدد 37 2023 الذي يتعلق بتنظيم التجارة الدولية بأصناف الحيوانات والنباتات البرية المهددة بالانقراض. زملائي الأعزاء، اعتباراً لدقة المرحلة، خاصة وأننا تجاوزنا نصف الأول من الفترة المخصصة لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، يتعين علينا كممثلين لبرلمانات العالم المشاركة الفعالة في عمليات التقييم للوقوف على النقائص وعلى الإشكاليات، انطلاقاً من مبدأ المسؤولية المشتركة والمتباينة وتكريساً لقيم الإنصاف والتضامن. اسمحوا لي أن أؤكد على أهمية تقديم الدعم للدول الأقل نمواً ومعاضدة جهودها في مواجهة تداعيات الآثار السلبية للتغيرات المناخية عبر بعض مشاريع في هذا المجال، فضلاً على تمويل وتيسير برامج تمكنها من كسب الرهانات ورفع التحديات التي تفرضها المرحلة الراهنة. وفي الختام أذكر أننا لا نرث الأرض من أجدادنا بل نستعيرها من أبنائنا، وشكراً.
Thank you very much, Tunisia, and I would appreciate all the speakers to manage the time. We have very limited time today. So now we'll go to Canada and then Suriname. So Canada, please.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to speak today on behalf of our Canadian delegation. It's also a great pleasure to be with you in Geneva, which must be one of Europe's most livable cities, in no small part to its impressive transportation system. It will be clear to most visitors to Geneva that the authorities have invested heavily in public transportation, which moves both residents and visitors swiftly from point A to B. Our delegation has taken advantage of the public transportation system while we've been here. Active forms of transportation also appear to be encouraged through the availability of bicycle paths and reserved pathways for pedestrians. The mass of bicycles parked outside the central railway station each day is a good indication that active transportation is being used in and around the city, in particular, that important last mile. I'm pleased to say that our federal Canadian government is increasingly playing a part to encourage the use of public and active transportation, thereby supporting the green transition. As a federal state, transportation in Canada is a responsibility shared between different levels of government. Since 2015, at the federal level, the government has provided more than $20 billion in funding to support public transit projects in communities across Canada. In February 2021, Prime Minister Trudeau announced the creation of Canada's first permanent public transit fund, called New Foundations for Public Transit Funding in Canada, which will become operational in 2026. As part of its investment, the Government of Canada is investing $3 billion per year in permanent federal public transit funding, which will be available to support transit initiatives across the country. These investments are intended to help Canada meet its climate targets, since the transportation sector accounts for approximately 25% of our greenhouse gas emissions. Importantly, the federal government is supporting projects that build new and expanded networks of pathways, bike lanes, trails, and pedestrian bridges. In 2021, we launched our $40 million Active Transportation Fund to promote the use of active forms of transport over a 5-year period. While these different transit initiatives may not transform our Canadian cities into Geneva overnight, they are an important step in the right direction, and we hope that they will make positive contributions to reducing emissions. With respect of the work of the IPU, the Canadian group of the IPU regularly communicates the results of our meetings, including resolutions and statements, to the Prime Minister, the Speakers of the Senate and the House of Commons, as well as the appropriate ministers and parliamentary committee chairs. To give a brief example, during this 148th IPU Assembly, the Standing Committee on Sustainable Development is discussing the draft resolution Partnerships for Climate Action. Once adopted by the IPU, we will ensure it is shared with a range of relevant persons and agencies in Canada. It is clear that Canada continues to act on its international climate commitments, and I look forward to learning from other delegations how their countries are working to meet their climate commitments and how they ensure follow-up to their activities with the IPU. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and hopefully in your next visit, you will see Canada better than Geneva. We'll go to Suriname, to be followed by Denmark, please. Suriname.
Mr. President, my dear colleagues, good afternoon. The Parliament of Suriname is making progress to build a society which is just and inclusive, where gender equality is a must and both men and women have the equal opportunities and rights. As a nation, we have committed ourselves to promote the rights of women in all areas of the society, which can be translated into the adoption of the different legislations regarding the rights of women. All these legislation provide a solid foundation and reinforce our commitment to ensure equal opportunities and create a respectful working environment for women. Our Parliament have all ears for the needs and problems of the society. Any proposal and working documents from the society are taken seriously and discussed within all factions. If necessary, an initiative proposal will be submitted to the President and the State Council. A committee of rapporteurs will discuss the proposal broadly with all relevant actors. We strive for broadly supported legislations in the benefit of the country. With this policy, we are reducing the gap and building bridges between the Parliament and the society to promote an open Parliament. Coming to climate change, our parliamentarians have participated individually and in groups in several activities and conferences to help raise awareness regarding the consequences and effects of climate change among our citizens. Following the international call for parliamentary action to tackle climate change, our Parliament has submitted an initiative proposal to the government to elaborate this important issue into their policy. There has been a broad discussion of a draft legislation environment framework where policymakers are doing their utmost by setting up institutions to solve impending environmental issues. Suriname is a negative carbon country and the most forested country in the world, with 93% forest coverage and a low deforestation rate. We are working towards to build its economy, and we also ask to be heard. I would like to ask all my colleagues here to draw international attention to the oxygen we have in the world and to protect the high-risk countries. Regarding the fact that Suriname as a country where our forest absorbs a huge amount of the carbon emission, the question that arises in my mind is, can we still believe in carbon credits? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suriname. We'll go to Denmark and then Latvia.
Thank you very much. and thank you for the invitation to say a few words during this special accountability segment of the general debate. I have a paper here from the IPU Committee on Human Rights of Parliamentarians. And according to this paper, in 2023, there was 732 current and former MPs from 47 different countries who were subject to violation of their human rights. Friends, that's a lot. For some, it is restriction of their freedom of expression or deprivation of their parliamentary mandate, while for others, it is years in imprisonment, often without any sentence. Any attack on human rights of a citizen is a problem, any. But attacks on human rights of parliamentarians is a particular problem because it undermines the very foundation of democracy. Therefore, the Danish Parliament have decided to follow the cases against parliamentarians in our part of the world, in Europe, which have been taken up exactly by this body, which have been taken up by the IPU, follow their cases. Concretely, we do it by sending delegations to court hearings, by sending letters to the persons, and by discussing the cases with representatives for the countries involved. Just one example, and that's one example. We have followed the case of Selahattin Demirtas, who is a leader of a party in Turkey. He was imprisoned in November 2016 and is still today, 8 years after in prison. In 2018, he took part in the presidential election in Turkey, where he ran the campaign from his prison cell, but still received more than 4 million votes. The Demirtas case is not only dealt by the IPU and our committee dealing with that, but also with the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, which has demanded his immediate release, and then we have tried to follow up on this case. The next hearing will be quite soon, and we will continue to follow up. But I will underline very strictly that this is not about a certain country or a specific country. This is about all the countries and all the 732 people, 62 MPs who is imprisoned. So therefore, we would very much encourage you, as we have done, to do something similar and show parliamentarian solidarity with colleagues in troubles. We need to keep focus. We need to keep focus on the fact that parliamentarians' place is not in prison. Parliamentarians' place is in the parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Denmark. Now, Latvia to be followed by Thailand. Latvia, floor is yours.
Dear Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here, and also I have heard this evening so many good examples. Thank you. One of the hindrances for inclusive societies is hate speech. In Latvian Parliament, we are enhancing our response to hate speech, collaborating closely with NGOs and law enforcement authorities. While hate speech is criminalized in Latvia, we are exploring now also more nuanced measures, starting with administrative actions to make it more efficient. And also turning to climate change. We urgently have to go away from fossil fuels. Latvia for a long time has been dependent on foreign fossil gas, and we were not able to reduce the consumption of it. The pledge for climate policy, unfortunately, was not as strong as pressure from fossil gas lobbyists. However, immediately after the Russian aggressive attack on Ukraine, the gas consumption fell just by market response, followed with a ban of imports of Russian gas by 1st January 2023. Currently in Latvia, we have stopped using Russian gas, and the overall consumption of fossil gas has dropped by 30%. It is just in a couple of years. And this consumption continues to drop. And what is also my learning point from that? After the start of the war, facing visible threats, we were able to change our behavior very rapidly with obvious public support. This proves that in the past we did not recognize the threats of climate change as serious enough. And we as politicians need to take more leadership in increasing public awareness about risks of climate change and to explain long-term gains over short-term benefits. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Latvia. And thanks for finishing earlier. We'll go to Thailand and followed by Germany. Thailand, floor is yours.
Dear President, esteemed delegates and beloved friends, my name is Pita Limcharanrat, Member of Parliament representing Thailand. And there are three key pillars when it comes to the topic of today, promoting inclusive societies. First is marriage equality. Second is ethnicity and indigenous rights. And third is on the labor protection as part of social justice. On marriage equality, in less than 24 hours, 9,000 kilometers away from here, the Parliament of Thailand will convene and decide on a historic landmark legislative on marriage equality that, if passed, Thailand will be the first country in the ASEAN to realize marriage equality, one of the first few in Asia to make sure that marriage equality is realized. We say that gender rights is human rights. We say that love is love, and those who are excluded will have the right to plan a family, build a family, and maintain a family when there's medical emergency. On ethnicity, on indigenous rights, we say to the world that indigenous rights also matter. So the cultural differences, the language differences, also the ability to get into the land justice where their origins were formed, as well as the ability to get included into the education system of Thailand. And finally, on the labor protection, we're talking about promotion of decent jobs. We're talking about gender parity. We are making sure that we all get the paternity leave to get the right work and life balance that every labor deserves in the world. And if this is only the beginning of what's going on in Thailand, it's not just laws on papers. It's really sending the message to the world, to the children who might not have the voice that reflect what's inside their soul. We're telling them that it's okay to talk about this. We're telling them that they have a chance to be included in the society within Thailand. So I ask the Assembly that tomorrow that you keep your fingers crossed and send your goodwill cheer on 9,000 kilometers away from here to Bangkok, that when it's passed, it's going to be the victory for the LGBTQIA+ community, not just in Thailand, but all around the world. And it's just thank you so much. And this is the politics of possibilities. It might not be perfect, it might take long, but it shows that if we do it together and we bring down the wall, bring down this barrier, and move forward together. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you very much, Thailand. Thank you very much. Next we'll go to Germany, followed by India. Germany.
Thank you very much, dear High Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General of the IPU, dear Martin, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. There are more than 1 billion people with disabilities worldwide. That is over 15% of the world population. Society often offers them poor health care, less education, fewer chances on the job market, and as a result, they are often poorer than people without disabilities. The COVID-19 pandemic, armed conflicts, environmental disasters, flight and displacement have further exacerbated these inequalities. But the participation of people with disabilities is a human right, not an act of mercy. It is clear to me that people with disabilities belong at the heart of our society right from the start. This is the only way to truly exemplify inclusion and the only way to close the existing gaps between theory and actual practice in our countries. In our opinion, the best way to enable people with disabilities to lead a self-determined and independent life is to create jobs and design workplaces in a way that allows people with disabilities to participate without noticeable barriers. Many people with disability in Germany are very well trained and can contribute to society as skilled workers. Integration into the labor market is therefore a major goal for us. The German state therefore requires private and public employers with at least 20 employees to employ at least 5% of people with disabilities. If this percentage is not met, an equalization levy must be paid. We are able to solve problems caused by long administrative processing times by deciding that applications from employers for financial support are deemed to have been approved 6 weeks after receipt of the application. In this way, we were able to significantly reduce bureaucracy in Germany during this legislative period and bring people together with suitable employers more quickly. However, our goal worldwide must be to create conditions for people with disabilities so that they can participate fully in social life. Germany is striving to ensure that all development aid projects are accessible to people with disabilities and not just specific programs for people with disabilities. Germany has more than 130 projects in various countries all over the world. It is also clear to me that no single actor alone can bring the necessary change. We should focus on international partnerships and promote cross-sectoral cooperation, as these are the key catalysts for change. As parliamentarians of this world, we should contribute to breaking down barriers together, including barriers in people's minds. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. And now we are running short of time, and I appreciate the 4 remaining countries if they can finish each in 2 minutes. So India, you have only 2 minutes, followed by IAO. India.
Honorable Chairperson and distinguished delegates. As a proud member of the IPU, India stands committed to upholding the values of transparency and accountability. For the 3rd consecutive year, India is pleased to participate in the IPU Assembly's general debate, particularly in the special accountability segment. This segment provides a valuable platform for exchanging good practices, sharing experiences, and learning from each other. Distinguished delegates, India is committed to promote inclusive societies by drawing upon the principle that no one is left behind. India is implementing policies and actions to strengthen societal harmony and foster inclusivity, dialogue, and peaceful coexistence. The ideal of inclusive development and peaceful coexistence are profoundly ingrained in our socio-political psyche. Similarly, India is committed to promote gender equality and gender-sensitive parliaments. In a historic occasion, during the first day of special session of Parliament in September 2023, Parliament of India passed the Women Reservation Bill 2023, which provides for reserving 1/3 of seats for women in the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. Distinguished delegates, addressing climate change is another priority for India. We acknowledge the urgent need for parliamentary action to tackle this global challenge. India has been actively involved in initiatives to tackle the negative effects of climate change, and we are committed to implementing legislation, budgets, and scrutiny measures to support the goals of the Paris Agreement and other climate-relevant accords. The pre-summit G20 Parliament forums on LIFE, Lifestyle for Environment, and the 9th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit P20 held in New Delhi in October 2023 demonstrated India's dedication to democratic values, international cooperation, and cooperative parliamentary efforts to address issues of climate change, global importance, and contemporary challenges. Before conclusion.
Thank you very much. Thank you, India. Sorry to cut you, but we have short time. Shall we go to IAO, please? IAO. IAO here?
Yes. Honorable IPU Secretary General, distinguished IPU members, from the outset I would like to convey to you the warm greetings and sincere thanks of the Secretary General of the Inter-Parliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, Dr. Maximos Charakopoulos, for the unique opportunity to participate in the Special Accountability segment. We must note that this is the first time that an international parliamentary institution under the observer status is actively participating in the Special Accountability segment. To achieve a peaceful and sustainable future, we must all strive regardless of legal status and formal procedures. Today, I will briefly present to you the activities undertaken by the IAO to promote the Marrakesh Communiqué adopted during the IPU Parliamentary Conference on Interfaith Dialogue on 15th June 2023. The IAO actively contributed in the Marrakesh Parliamentary Conference by participating in a thematic panel and carried out a series of following-up actions. First, in June 2023, we held the 30th Anniversary General Assembly in Chalkidiki, where we devoted a part of the discussion to the Marrakesh Communiqué and decided that we should share it with our partners so it receives the widest possible visibility. In fact, the IPU expert Dr. Sara Markevich represented the IPU in the Assembly and analyzed the content of the communiqué. Second, the IAO leadership extended an invitation to the leadership of the Parliamentary Union of the Member States of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to co-organize a parliamentary dialogue conference for the promotion of the importance of interfaith understanding of Christian and Muslim worlds. Third, in February 2024, the IAO leadership participated in the International Conference on Parliamentary and Religious Leaders for Coexistence and Peace, organized in Sarajevo, where we once again underlined the importance of the Marrakesh Communiqué. Finally, from the 15th to 17th May of 2024, the IAO, in collaboration with the Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the European Union, the Conference of European Churches, and the Organization Together for Europe, will hold an international political conference in Thessaloniki, Greece, on politics as an area of expressing Christian values in everyday life. One of the roundtables of the conference will be dedicated to the Marrakesh Communiqué as a positive model for the involvement of the religious factor in international politics.
Thank you.
At this point, I would like to conclude the presentation, the follow-up actions. Thank you very much for offering us the floor for sharing our activities.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have PMNCH to be followed by Malawi, and that will be the last speaker, Malawi. So, PMNCH, please, 2 minutes. PMNCH, are you here? No?
Yes, they're there.
What's that? Multiple.
Maybe he has a problem with
his Greetings, we are here. Unfortunately, our mic is not working, so I'm speaking from the Zambia desk. Spirit of solidarity. I bring greetings from the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health, which is the largest alliance for women's, children's, and adolescents in the world. We are very pleased to be here with this August gathering of parliamentarians and really
happy and excited and gratified to hear about the different actions that parliamentarians are taking in their countries on issues of importance. We also would like to congratulate the IPU on its sustained focus and growing momentum for the multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary action that it is promoting for climate action, including through the resolution right now on the partnership aspect of taking action for climate change. We would like to urge parliamentarians in this August hall to take every measure possible of national and regional and global accountability mechanisms to ensure that IPU resolutions that are passed in these assemblies are impactful for the most vulnerable populations which are affected by the global conflicts and the global conditions of the day, especially women, children, and adolescents. In this regard, we would like to share with parliamentarians that the voluntary national reviews that are going to be undertaken in 2024, please prioritize the issue of national actions on Goal 13 for the SDGs, which is the goal that looks at the actions that countries can take in relation to climate crisis. In this regard, we would like to ask and urge parliamentarians from Argentina, Armenia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Belize, Brazil, Chad, Colombia, Congo, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Georgia, Guinea, Honduras, Kenya, Democratic Republic of Laos, Libya, Mauritania, Mauritius, Mexico, Micronesia, Namibia, Nepal, Oman, Palau, Peru, Samoa, Sierra Leone, Solomon Islands, South Africa, South Sudan, Spain, the Syrian Arab Republic, Uganda, Vanuatu, Yemen, and Zimbabwe as countries that have committed and raised their hand to conducting voluntary national reviews in the lead up to the high-level political forum to please prioritize assessing the actions that countries are taking in relation to climate change and to ensure that within these discussions, women, children, and adolescents...
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have been, one extra minute have been given to you. So let's close by Malawi. Malawi will be the last speaker in the special accountability bit. So please, Malawi.
Mr. President, I am pleased to contribute on the accountability segment report on the theme of climate change. Mr. President, in the context of Malawi, a nation deeply vulnerable to the effects of climate change, Malawi Parliament has emerged as a beacon of hope, demonstrating unwavering commitment to combating this existential threat. Today, we gather to reflect on the strides made by Malawi Parliament in tackling climate change and to chart path forward in our collective efforts to safeguard our planet for future generations. Mr. President, over the last 2 decades, Malawi has endured a brunt of climatic hazards, ranging from prolonged dry spells to devastating cyclones and flash floods. These events have wreaked havoc on our communities, jeopardizing food and water security and undermining the very fabric of our society. However, amidst these challenges, Malawi Parliament has risen to the occasion, enacting progressive legislation, allocating resources, and exercising robust oversight to address the impacts of climate change head-on. Mr. President, one of the most notable achievements of the Malawi Parliament is the enactment of the Climate Change Act, a landmark piece of legislation that provides a comprehensive framework for mitigating and adapting to climatic change impacts. This act not only aligns national policies with the objectives of international agreements, such as the Paris Agreement, but also mandates the integration of climate considerations into sectoral policies, fostering a holistic approach to climate action. Furthermore, Malawi Parliament has played a pivotal role in allocating resources to climate-related initiatives, ensuring that adequate funding is allocated to sectors such as renewable energy, afforestation, and climate-smart agriculture. By prioritizing climate change adaptation, and resilience-building efforts, Parliament has laid the groundwork for a sustainable future for our nation.
Thank you very much, Shanawi. I'm sorry we have to close here,
Thank
and
you.
thank you very much for that. This will end up our special accountability segment, and we'll go back to the General Assembly, please.
Honorable Asamblea, compañeros, colegas, todas y todos, continuamos con el debate general y vamos a dar el uso de la palabra a Ecuador. Por cierto, mi nombre es Marcela Guerra y soy la presidenta de la Cámara de Diputados de México.
Buenas tardes, honorable presidenta. Un saludo cordial a todos los parlamentarios presentes. Soy Pamela Aguirre, jefa de la Delegación de Ecuador y presidenta de la Comisión de Fiscalización de la Asamblea Nacional. Y efectivamente, la paz no es ausencia de guerra. La paz es vivir con dignidad y con el sueño de un futuro mejor. Ecuador no tiene una guerra contra otro país. Ecuador tiene una guerra dentro de sus cárceles y dentro de sus calles. Una guerra contra el crimen organizado y las mafias. ¿Pero por qué un país que no produce drogas y que no consume drogas está sumido en el crimen organizado y en el narcotráfico? Porque somos víctimas colaterales de una guerra contra las drogas que ha fracasado. Sí, queridos parlamentarios, la guerra contra las drogas a nivel mundial ha fracasado. Vemos a miles de ciudadanos completamente golpeados por el consumo de fentanilo, caminando como zombies en distintos lugares del mundo. Vemos que la guerra contra las drogas ha fracasado porque la cocaína sigue siendo una de las principales drogas consumidas a nivel mundial. Lo que para unos inhalan y es diversión, para otros significa la muerte. En el 2023, 8,000 ecuatorianos fueron asesinados producto de la guerra contra el crimen organizado, cuando antes, en el 2016, éramos el segundo país más seguro de Latinoamérica. ¿Qué hemos hecho como Parlamento? Apoyar a que los militares salgan a las calles, para que controlen la seguridad ciudadana. Pero no es suficiente cuando el crimen organizado se ha infiltrado en el Estado. Aquellos que están presos por el crimen organizado terminan saliendo con el apoyo de jueces y fiscales que reciben en sus cuentas bancarias dinero producto del narcotráfico. ¿Cómo no hemos podido detectar aquello cuando tenemos herramientas como la inteligencia artificial? Lamentablemente, esas herramientas están en manos de los delincuentes, no están en manos de los estados que están en vías de desarrollo y no tienen los recursos para poder pagar. No tienen los recursos para poder pagar la inteligencia artificial y sistemas computarizados. Pero aquí también un tema es muy importante. Los paraísos fiscales. Porque ese dinero, producto del crimen organizado, de la trata de personas, de la delincuencia criminal y del narcotráfico, ¿a dónde va? Va a los agujeros negros de dinero a nivel internacional, donde no existe ningún tipo de control. Ese dinero tiene que evitarse que se siga produciendo. Si es que logramos combatir el financiamiento al crimen organizado, podremos combatir las drogas. No solo es suficiente las declaraciones de solidaridad. Necesitamos un verdadero control de las cárceles. Las grandes empresas que proveen internet y telefonía también están dando estos servicios a las cárceles y al crimen organizado. ¿Cómo es posible que la telefonía celular y el internet esté al servicio del denominado dark web, donde los delincuentes pueden hacer toda serie de negociaciones de la manera más oscura? Son aquellos delincuentes de cuello blanco quienes manejan este tipo de tecnología, porque definitivamente es muy cara para los estados en vía de desarrollo. ¿Qué tenemos que hacer? Afectar el financiamiento. Pero también existen acciones reales. La primera, el control de los puertos. Necesitamos, como Latinoamérica, tener un control permanente de los puertos, pero también los lugares como Europa y Estados Unidos tienen que controlar sus fronteras, porque lo que sale de Latinoamérica llega a Europa y llega a Estados Unidos. Esta es una guerra de todos, no solo del Ecuador. Además, tenemos que controlar el financiamiento, pero sobre todo ser muy firmes con la forma en la que nuestros estados abordan el procesamiento de estos criminales. Estos criminales que ahora están en las cárceles de Ecuador viven de la manera más cómoda, tienen más comodidades que en sus propias casas. ¿Qué hemos hecho? Necesitamos sanciones reales contra el crimen organizado. No podemos fracasar en la guerra contra las drogas porque creemos en un mundo mejor y la paz con drogadicción y con narcotráfico jamás se logrará. Ese sueño quedará frustrado. Muchas gracias, queridos comisionados.
Gracias, compañera de Ecuador. Tiene ahora el uso de la palabra Rusia hasta por 2 minutos y se prepara Guyana.
Уважаемая госпожа председатель, уважаемые делегации 148-й Ассамблеи Межпарламентского союза, в эти трудные и тяжелые дни в нашей стране по указу президента Российской Федерации Владимира Владимировича Путина объявлен общенациональный траур. Коллеги, погибло более 130 детей, более 130 человек. Многие пострадавшие находятся в тяжелом состоянии. Погибли дети, наши дети. Я хочу высказать слова благодарности всем парламентариям, всем делегациям, кто выразил нам соболезнования по поводу вопиющего террористического акта, произошедшего в Крокус-Сити-Холле в городе Москва. Я хочу возвратиться к теме нашего заседания и отметить следующее. Новые угрозы и вызовы, которые формируются в условиях многополярного миропорядка, требуют нашего объединения и сплочения усилий всего международного сообщества, задействования интеллектуально-творческого потенциала молодого гражданского общества, всех заинтересованных в поступательном развитии человечества граждан. Важнейшую роль в этом, несомненно, коллеги, призваны сыграть мы с вами, парламентарии и парламенты. Их авторитет и умение находить баланс интересов и компромисс всегда могут играть и уже играют важную стабилизирующую роль для всей системы международных отношений, придают ей столь необходимую гибкость и устойчивость. Именно мы с вами, парламентарии, являясь носителями демократической легитимности, наделены высокими полномочиями выражать волю своих народов, действовать в интересах людей, наших с вами коллег. Основной миссией парламентской дипломатии всегда является продвижение объединительной, конструктивной повестки, содействие и гармонизации экономических и гуманитарных контактов и связей, укрепление доверия между народами и странами. Мы должны приложить максимум наших усилий, чтобы навести парламентские мосты во имя мира и взаимопонимания, всеми силами способствовать предотвращению эскалации насилия, осуществлению террористических актов. Коллеги, еще раз благодарю всех вас за поддержку, за ваше понимание, за ваше сочувствие и за ваше добросердечие. Спасибо.
Muchas gracias, colega de Rusia. Tiene ahora el uso de la palabra Guyana hasta por 3 minutos y se prepara Lituania.
Mr. Secretary General, Madam President, it is a pleasure to be here. It is the great Martin Luther King Jr. who said that peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice and brotherhood. Parliaments bring together the largest number of the most powerful elected leaders on the planet. This mighty army can easily be the greatest global agency of change, including procuring lasting peace and understanding. The IPU, being the largest global association of parliaments, with its grounding principles that dialogue is central to peaceful resolution of conflicts, is ideally poised to achieve this objective. Unfortunately, at this conference, we failed to harness this energy and marshal our thoughts to condemn the worst human rights tragedy in the world, Gaza, and the lack of democracy in Venezuela. These horrendous events, although occurring at opposite sides of the globe, together manifest the deadly havoc that armed conflicts wreaks and the social disorder and human sufferings that the absence of democracy produces. More than 30,000 are dead in Gaza. Nearly 8 million refugees have fled Venezuela. There is another dimension about Venezuela which I wish to highlight. Venezuela continues to unlawfully claim 2/3 of the sovereign territory of its western neighbor, Guyana. This claim by Venezuela was finally and conclusively settled by arbitration in 1899. Venezuela accepted and acted upon this arbitral award for 6 consecutive decades thereafter. It was not until the early 60s, when Guyana was about to gain independence from Great Britain, that Venezuela made the outrageous claim that the arbitral award was unlawful. It continues to make this spurious claim to date without producing a scintilla of evidence to substantiate it. Right here in Geneva in 1966, Venezuela signed an agreement with Guyana, inter alia empowering the United Nations Secretary General to take steps to resolve the controversy. In 2018, exercising those powers, the UN Secretary General referred the matter to the International Court of Justice, where it remains pending. Thus far, Venezuela has refused to accept the court's jurisdiction or to be bound by any order the court makes. Venezuela has threatened physical invasion and in December 2023 moved a referendum to annex 2/3 of Guyana's sovereign territory. The ICJ has issued interim measures restraining Venezuela from taking further steps in its declared intention. Every major international organization in the Western Hemisphere has condemned Venezuela's action and have called upon Venezuela to respect the jurisdiction of the ICJ, to comply with international law, and to employ diplomacy in resolving this alleged dispute. These include the United Nations, the European Union, the Commonwealth, the Organization of American States, the CARICOM community, and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. Many governments, including the United States, Canada, Great Britain, Brazil, and those of the Caribbean, have issued similar statements. Significantly, by virtue of an intervention broken by CARICOM and CELAC, the presidents of Venezuela and Guyana signed an accord in Argyle, St. Vincent in December 2023, inter alia declaring not to take any steps to escalate this conflict, but to resort to diplomacy and dialogue in resolving it. During all of this, Guyana has maintained emphatically that the matter must be resolved by the ICJ. Further, Guyana has always maintained that diplomacy and dialogue must prevail over threats and confrontation. Last week, in breach of both the letter and spirit of these interim measures granted by the ICJ and the Argyle Declaration, Venezuela government enacted laws in its parliament to annex 2/3 of Guyana's sovereign territory.
Please conclude.
1 minute.
Colleague.
I appeal to each one of you to use the theme of this conference and the platform of your respective parliament to condemn the actions of Venezuela, to demand compliance with international law, and to call for diplomacy to be used as a bridge for peace and understanding. This is not a favor to Guyana. It is discharging a duty we owe to ourselves and indeed the world if we are to remain true to the founding principles of this great organization. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Guyana. Y pido a los oradores respetar el tiempo, por favor. Tiene ahora el uso de la palabra Lituania y se prepara Tailandia.
Dear Madam President, dear friends, it was a huge
important job done by our parliamentary IPU meeting through all those days, and I would like to add something essential. I'm in my parliamentary activities more like 30 years, and my mother spent years in concentration camp in Germany during the Nazi occupation. So all rules of the Second World War, all conventions, human rights conventions, United Nations, Council of Europe Convention of Human Rights was based on the answer to the brutality of Second World War, the answer to Nazi regime. And it was built the system of law and obligations. From my point of view, my mother just passed away, and she told me clearly, I never have in mind that we will be coming to the Third World War brink. I'm just urging Russia Federation to stop their aggression against Ukraine, to stop repressions against Russian Democrats inside of Russia, and cooperate with United Nations and Council of Europe and other bodies to establish international commission to evaluate Alexander Navalny's death. It should be done by creating serious attitude to our democratic obligations. And in this great hall, it's important to say that it's not the case that Russian Federation gets rid of us with nuclear weapons in the case of their war upon Ukraine. So in this case, it's not a case that international justice can be subjugated to the one dictatorship. It's not a case when you have not free, not fair elections, and the president of not free and fair elected country will be treating the Democrats in creating jail and repeating Joseph Stalin experience. I would like to say thank you so much, and very pity that we have no resolution on Ukraine this time. With great honor to being among you. Thank you for all your resolutions. Thank you for all your attitudes and all your votings. Thanks a lot.
Gracias, Lituania. Tiene ahora el uso de la palabra Tailandia y se prepara Irlanda. Pido, por favor, respetar el tiempo a los oradores.
Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, esteemed colleagues, Sawadee ka. With the escalating conflicts and fragile global peace, Thailand firmly believes that now is the time for parliamentary diplomacy to pursue our common agenda for peace, prosperity, and sustainability for all, in the spirit of multilateralism and solidarity. As for our foreign policies, Thailand has long pursued peaceful collaborative relations with all members of the international community, based on mutual trust, understanding, and respect. We believe that long-lasting peace can be achieved through sustainable development. Therefore, Thai parliamentarians will do our utmost to bring SDG back on track. Also, we fully support ASEAN's collective efforts for diplomacy, de-escalation, peaceful means to achieve sustained peace in the region, including the situation in Myanmar. As an immediate neighbor, it is in Thailand's vital interest to see quick return to peace, reconciliation, and stability in Myanmar. The Thai Parliament thus welcomes our government's recent initiatives to establish humanitarian corridors along Thailand and Myanmar borders to upscale humanitarian assistance without politicization. Finally, I wish to reaffirm Thailand's intention to support the agendas of the IPU, be they peace, security, development, climate change management, commitment to democracy and human rights, and the promotion of partnerships between stakeholders at all levels. Our young MPs are determined to work closely with all nations and partners through parliamentary diplomacy and to meet these challenges head-on. I thank you, Madam President.
Muchas gracias. Tailandia, y ahora tiene el uso de la palabra Irlanda y se prepara Burkina Faso.
Mr. Secretary General, Madam President, delegates, I stand before you today not only as a young parliamentarian, but also as a woman parliamentarian. We know that peace is promoted through economic equality, gender equality, and all groups being treated as valuable members of society. We as parliamentarians must commit to having more women in parliaments and more women in senior leadership positions in parliaments. We need seats at the table and the top seats at the top table. As the saying goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and we don't want to be on the menu any longer. For too long, the patriarchal systems of government have worked against women and led to poorer outcomes for societies globally. We say no more. No more to harmful practices such as FGM and other forms of violence against women and girls. No more to threats to reproductive rights and healthcare. No more to gender income inequality. No more to unequal access to education, nutrition, and healthcare for girls and women globally. We need to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goal number 5. Conflict and war has always disproportionately impacted on women and children. Let us use this assembly to build bridges, engage in diplomacy, and commit to ceasefires and lasting peace and cooperation. Populism and polarization are huge threats. They damage our countries and make them less secure. And instability grows out of this insecurity. In this year of elections, in particular, I would urge all parliamentarians to reject populism and polarization and other divisive means to gain support. It is incumbent on us to be honest with our electorate and bring people together. Delegates, I will leave you with a quote from President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Life is never easy. There is work to be done and obligations to be met. Obligations to truth, to justice, and to liberty. Thank you very much, delegates.
Gracias, Irlanda. Tiene el uso de la palabra Burkina Faso y se prepara Irán.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, honorables députés, Mesdames et Messieurs, en ma qualité de jeune parlementaire du Burkina Faso, je suis honoré de prendre la parole devant cette Assemblée de l'Union interparlementaire pour vous entretenir de l'impact des conflits sur les jeunes et de leur marginalisation dans le processus de prise de décision. En effet, les jeunes, qu'ils soient armés, politiques, les conflits, qu'ils soient armés, politiques ou sociaux, sont des conséquences dévastatrices sur les jeunes à travers le monde. Ces conséquences vont au-delà des pertes matérielles et des traumatismes psychologiques. Elles se manifestent également par une marginalisation systématique qui prive les jeunes de leur droit fondamental à la participation politique et sociale. Lorsque nous examinons les conflits à travers le globe, nous constatons un schéma troublant. Les jeunes sont souvent les premières victimes et leurs derniers à être inclus dans le processus de paix et de reconstruction. Leurs voix sont étouffées par le bruit des armes et leur potentiel est compromis par l'instabilité et l'incertitude qui accompagnent les conflits. Pourtant, il est impératif pour que nous reconnaissions le potentiel immense que représentent les jeunes dans la reconstruction de la paix et de la stabilité. Leur énergie, leur créativité et leur désir ardent de changement sont des ressources précieuses que nous ne pouvons pas nous permettre d'ignorer. Cela veut dire investir dans leur éducation, leur formation professionnelle et leur accès aux opportunités économiques afin de renforcer leur résilience et leur capacité à contribuer positivement à leur communauté. Il est de notre devoir, nous parlementaires, de veiller à ce que les voix des jeunes soient non seulement entendues, mais également prises en compte. En conclusion, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers honorables, nous devons agir maintenant pour briser ce cycle de violence et d'exclusion et pour créer un avenir où chaque jeune a la possibilité de réaliser son plein potentiel. Ensemble, nous pouvons construire un monde plus juste, pacifique et inclusif pour les générations présentes et futures. Je vous remercie.
Gracias, Burkina Faso. Tiene ahora el uso de la palabra Irán y se prepara Nueva Zelanda.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. خانم رئیس، عالی جنابان، همکاران محترم، نمایندگان جوان مجلس کشورهای عضو، در ابتدا مایلم مراتب خوشبختی خود را در حضور جمع رؤسای پارلمان‌ها و هیئت‌های عضو IPU بین المجالس خوشبختی خودم را اعلام کنم. سال نو و نوروز رو به کشورهای حوزه تمدنی نوروز و ماه رمضان رو تبریک عرض می‌کنم. خانم رئیس، امروز در شرایطی از دیپلماسی پارلمانی برای صلح و تفاهم سخن می‌گوییم که جمعیت جوان در سراسر جهان در معرض خطرات متعددی قرار گرفته. جنگ، تغییرات اقلیمی و بحران‌های غذایی از جمله چالش‌هایی هستند که حیات و بالندگی نسل جهان را تهدید می‌کنند. وضعیت جوانان فلسطینی و قتل عام آنها نمونه‌ای تمام عیار از تهدید به انقراض نسل جوان و آینده‌ساز در کشور فلسطین است. امروز مردم فلسطین و زنان و کودکان و جوانان غزه به دلیل نسل‌کشی رژیم صهیونیستی گرسنه‌اند و غذایی برای خوردن ندارند. امروز در شرایطی از وضعیت جوان فلسطینی سخن می‌گوییم که نسل‌های آینده آن کشور در اثر اقدامات قساوت‌آمیز و درنده خویانه ماشین جنگی رژیم تروریستی و کودککش صهیونیستی به خاک و خون افتاده، خانمان از دست داده و آواره شدند و در بدترین شرایط زیستی ممکن در محاصره کامل با عفریت مرگ دست و پنجه نرم می‌کنند. چگونه می‌توان از آینده‌ای برای فلسطین سخن گفت در حالی است که دیری است جوان فلسطینی هدف شکنجه، کشتار و نابودی نسلی قرار گرفته است؟ تلاش برای راندن و بیخانمان ساختن نسل جوان ملت بی‌دفاع فلسطین از سرزمین پدری خیش برای اجرای نقشه شوم و قدیمی صهیونیستی در جریان است. در این زمینه نیاز صدای واحد و اقدامی قاطع در جهت حمایت از نسل جوان و آینده فلسطین هستیم. دیپلماسی پارلمانی به مثابه ابزار برای ایجاد صلح و تفاهم زمانی محقق خواهد شد که برابری و عدالت برای جوانان در سراسر جهان محقق گردد. طراحی هر گونه مانع و اقدام قهری یک جانبه ناقض حقوق بین الملل و حقوق بشر مانع از رشد و تعالی جمعیت جوان در سراسر جهان خواهد شد. حق صلح، حق توسعه، حق دسترسی به بهداشت، حق آموزش از حقوق بنیادی جوانان در دنیای امروز محسوب می شود و به شمار می رود. در سایه اقدامات خودخواهانه غیرقانونی برخی از بازیگران مسئولیت گریز به خطر افتاده. اقدامات قهری یک جانبه از جمله تحمیل تحریم‌های ظالمانه بر علیه کشورها و جمهوری اسلامی ایران باعث ایجاد مشکل برای جوانان و تحمیل هزینه بر آنان شده و حتی موضوعات علمی و پژوهشی را برای محققین و دانشمندان و جوانان سخت کرده. البته این باعث تلاش مضاعف جوانان ما شده. ایجاد مانع برای انتقال فناوری‌های آموزش جهت تحصیل و کسب و کارها برای جوانان، ناامیدسازی آنها در کشورهای در حال توسعه نسبت به روند توسعه آنها و ایجاد مراکزی برای انتشار اطلاعات نادرست و کم رغبت نمودن جمعیت جوانان کشورها به مشارکت در ساخت کشور خود از جمله اقداماتی هستند که متاسفانه برخی از مراکز سرمایه‌داری جهانی برای سوق دادن جوانان به انفعال دنبال می‌کنند. این اقدامات غیر سازنده بایستی جای خود را به همکاری فراگیر بین المللی برای کمک به توانمندسازی نسل جوان در سراسر جهان بدهند. مطمئنم هیئت‌های محترم به این مسئله توجه خواهند داشت که همکاری و همفکری مجالس کشورهای اتحادیه بین المجالس برای ایجاد صدایی واحد در زمینه پرداختن به مسائل جوانان منجر به ایجاد آینده امن همراه با صلح و رونق برای نسل آینده در سراسر جهان خواهد شد. به جوانان اعتماد کنیم تا این مؤسسات به ظاهر بین المللی تغییرات بنیادی در اونها صورت بگیره. متشکرم. تشکر.
Time is over. Thank you. Gracias, Irán, y pido por favor de nueva cuenta a los oradores y oradoras respetar el tiempo establecido. Tiene ahora el uso de la palabra Nueva Zelanda y se prepara Austria.
Tēnā koutou katoa. In New Zealand, we have a proverb, nā ku te roro no te roro ka ai te iwi. With your basket and my basket, the people will live. It is a constant reminder that sustained peace cannot be achieved alone. Sitting in these rooms, I have been frustrated listening to politicians discuss what will be written on a piece of paper and determining the value of a human life. I'm here to talk about peace. Peace can only be achieved when we do not allow a nation to tell us that their human lives are more valuable than another human life. New Zealand is a small country, and we rely on international law to be upheld and for nations to be held to account when it is not. I know my children's lives are no more valuable than your children or any children in the world. We must be committed to upholding human rights, Indigenous rights, and non-violent conflict resolution. I am devastated and outraged at the loss of over 30,000 Palestinian lives since October 7th. Hostages from Israel and Palestine must be released, and there must be an immediate ceasefire. The Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand is part of a global movement working to change politics, to put people and planet first. We see the crises facing our planet as connected and requiring solutions that stretch across borders. Every single child in this beautiful world deserves to be able to trust adults in power to put their needs first, to end poverty, to end pollution, and to face up to the climate crisis. Ka ora te whenua, ka ora te tangata. When the land is well, the people will be well. Will you stand up for justice and peace for our children? I say free West Papua, free Sudan, free Congo, free Palestine, and toitu te tiriti. Kia ora.
Thank you, New Zealand. Gracias, Nueva Zelanda. Tiene el uso de la palabra. Take the floor, Austria.
Madam President, Secretary General, dear colleagues, in our world shaken by multiple crises, I would like to emphasize the importance of multilateral organizations and multilateralism in general. We need a strong political discourse based on compromise in order to find solutions for diverse crises and risks in these trying times. As a young parliamentarian, I'm worried about the stability of democracies in the upcoming years. While the world seems to be more and more divided, keeping multilateral dialogue is both a challenge but also crucial for finding solutions. We achieve more stability by finding compromises with more actors involved. It may be more complicated, but in the end, more of us end up winning rather than keeping out important point of views of our partners and having to renegotiate afterwards. There are many examples that prove how beneficial multilateralism can be. Think about international law, which is a cornerstone of our modern world. Or think about the Schengen area, for example, in European Union, which has led to more freedom for so many individuals in the member states of European Union. Without multilateralism, this world would be a different one and not for the better. It is therefore important to strengthen the bonds among states with same goals and same aspirations in order to work towards a common goal. The best way to achieve this is via multilateralism. And trust me, it's always better to have a multilateral compromise rather than having no compromise at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Austria. Gracias, Austria. Y tiene el uso de la palabra, take the floor, Brazil. Brasil. Gracias, por favor.
Inicialmente, quero saudar os colegas parlamentares e a presidente desta Assembleia e quero começar afirmando que há uma verdade universal. Nós escolhemos o que nós plantamos, não importa em qual local do mundo nós possamos estar. Sempre iremos nos deparar, cedo ou tarde, com as consequências dos nossos atos. Hoje, há um enorme esforço mundial para trazer realidade uma política de descarbonização como um remédio para tentar, ao menos, minimizar uma série de escolhas equivocadas que nós, humanos, adotamos em prol de um crescimento econômico desenfreado. Estamos em um momento histórico em que dois caminhos se desenham claramente em nossas frentes. E esse prognóstico é o seguinte: escolhemos a completa destruição do planeta pelo uso desenfreado dos nossos bens finitos, ou o caminho da virada, o caminho que olhamos ao redor, nos reconhecemos como comunidade e buscando juntos mudar o curso da nossa história. Indícios dessa destruição são diversos. E aqui eu trago para conhecimento do mundo, através das 149 nações aqui presentes, o caso da maior tragédia ambiental urbana em andamento em todo o planeta, e que, infelizmente, está acontecendo na cidade de Maceió, em Alagoas, no Brasil, onde 60 mil pessoas foram obrigadas a deixar suas residências porque a empresa de mineração multinacional Braskem, visando apenas o lucro e deixando de lado o cuidado com o meio ambiente e o cuidado com a vida das pessoas, passou 40 anos em área urbana extraindo o mineral salgema de maneira indiscriminada, sem a devida fiscalização e criando cavernas gigantescas embaixo das casas de 60 mil pessoas, sem que elas soubessem. E isso já causou o afundamento de diversos bairros, gerando rachaduras nas casas e na vida de milhares de pessoas, além de um dano irreparável para a cidade e para o meio ambiente. Por fim, clamo à comunidade mundial ajuda e apoio para buscar uma reparação justa para as pessoas que sofrem essa tragédia e para o meio ambiente, como também chamo a atenção para somarmos forças e tratar com seriedade as regras ambientais e fortalecer as formas de fiscalização mineral para não seguirmos testemunhando tragédias evitáveis como esta, que muitas vezes são irreparáveis. E sendo assim, vou formalizar a esta Assembleia Internacional para que designe uma comissão específica para acompanhar o caso do crime ambiental e humanitário que está em andamento. Muito obrigado, senhora presidente.
Obrigada. Thank you, Brasil. Gracias, Brasil. Honorable Asamblea, esta presidencia le otorga el uso de la palabra desde su lugar a Marruecos para emitir una respuesta según reglamento. Adelante, Marruecos. 2 minutos. No, desde su lugar. Et voilà, comme ça.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. طبقا لمقتضيات المادة 22 الفقرة الثانية من النظام الأساسي لاتحاد البرلمان الدولي، أخذ الكلمة باسم الوفد المغربي في إطار حق الرد على ما جاء من مغالطات على لسان ممثل البرلمان الجزائري الذي أبى مع الأسف إلا أن يردد نفس الأسطوانة المشروخة حول الصحراء المغربية ويقوم بتغليط هذه الجلسة العامة المحترمة. في هذا السياق أود أن أصحح المعلومات الخاطئة لممثل البرلمان الجزائري لأؤكد له مرة أخرى أن قضية الصحراء المغربية معروضة حصريا على مجلس الأمن الدولي، خلافا لما ادعى في خلال كلمته أنها معروضة على طاولة المحكمة الدولية، وهي قضية محسومة بالنسبة للمملكة المغربية التي قدمت مقترح الحكم الذاتي لحل النزاع المفتعل، وهذا المقترح ما فتئ يتلقى دعم مستمر من المنتظم الدولي. شكرا سيدة الرئيسة.
Merci beaucoup, muchas gracias, Marruecos. Honorable Asamblea. ¿Con qué objeto? A ver, muestre. No hay ahora, no se otorga el uso de la palabra, no hay réplica, no hay contrarréplica. No hay contrarréplica según reglamento. Con esta intervención concluimos el debate general. Muchas gracias a todas y a todos por sus ideas y sus planteamientos. Nos vemos mañana.